They mocked his seed bags as worthless junk nobody needed. Those same seeds became food, armor, timber, and automatic weapons overnight. Seos Shin entered the jungle weak, isolated and surrounded. Even the ground could split open and drag careless survivors underground. His discernment cheat revealed the true value of every ordinary-looking item. One fertilizer dose cut growth from 10 days to 10 hours. That advantage built a fortress and real feast while others rationed scraps. It made 4th-rank beauty Lee Manhwa choose him as a trusted partner. The path to that advantage began with a silver treasure chest carried away from a river monster. Almost 20 meters long, the giant crocodile had not attacked him, and its absence from the map forced Seos Shin to reconsider how his cheat worked. Red marks probably identified hostility rather than raw power, leaving neutral beasts, birds, insects, and allies invisible. That explanation made the terrifying crocodile feel less like a predator, and more like an unlikely benefactor. Only after moving several hundred meters from the stream did Seos Shin place the silver chest on solid ground. It was larger than the bronze chest, polished brightly, and secured by a keyhole cut into its center. He inserted the silver key, turned it carefully, and circled behind the chest before lifting the lid. No trap activated, yet the small number of objects inside immediately made him suspicious. The contrast made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. The chest contained one thin contract, one golden compass, and one matching golden key. This change proved the best rewards often solved several problems together. His discernment identified the contract as a blue-grade treehouse renovation permit, with both interior and exterior functions. It could create bedrooms, bathrooms, partitions, storage, cooking facilities, mounted weapons, and defensive armor around the trunk. Seos Shin's empty 100-square-meter room had offered space, but none of the comforts required. For long-term survival, every bath required climbing down, every meal demanded improvised equipment, and every night passed inside a hollow wooden box. The contract promised to change that shelter into a genuine home and eventually an armed fortress. Seos Shin activated it immediately, watching the card shatter into light and dissolve through his palm. Warm energy flowed across his muscles, strengthening his body while new renovation options appeared on the treehouse screen. He lifted the silver chest again and confirmed that it felt noticeably lighter than before. The pressure made the next chest or contract impossible to treat casually. First, the bare paw had enhanced him, and now the contract had improved his strength the second time. Personal power mattered because the system would never let survivors hide safely forever. That result connected visible marks with hostility rather than raw strength. Sooner or later, everyone would have to gather, hunt, fight, or face whatever punishment waited outside. Seos Shin stored the golden compass and key, then rescued Kiki after the tiny panda climbed into the empty chest. He kept the chest itself because silver would become priceless. Once technology advanced toward electrical equipment, even with his backpack reducing weight, the metal container slowed him enough to prove future storage needed improvement. Before leaving, Seos Shin thanked the giant crocodile and promised to bring it something delicious next time. A small whirlpool turned in the current as though the hidden monster had actually understood him. Kiki waved one paw in farewell, completely forgetting that she had bared her teeth at the creature moments earlier. Back at the treehouse, Seos Shin opened the renovation menu and found a crafting list almost too long to process. Wooden walls required round wood and offered soundproofing, while doors, cabinets, windows, and furniture demanded related materials. A small green-grade stone stove finally offered controlled cooking inside the shelter, instead of constant outdoor fires. The interior recipes explained why bronze chests contained unfamiliar materials before anyone could use them. That consequence made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. External equipment mattered even more, beginning with an automatic heavy crossbow mounted directly onto the treehouse. It could identify hostile units, aim without human control, and fire heavy reusable bolts through ordinary beasts. The weapon required fine wood and animal tendons, materials unavailable during the earliest stage. This visible proof turned stored resources into force that could act on command. Wooden armor could also wrap the treehouse trunk, reducing damage during future beast tides. The outcome showed why direct combat should remain the final option. Fine wood came from birch trees, while round wood came from pine trees. The decision showed how ordinary materials could become long-term security. The seed bags everyone dismissed were there for the foundation for both automated defense and structural defense. Seos Shin immediately understood the chain: plant seeds, accelerate growth, harvest timber, then convert it into survival technology. A message from Lee Manhwa interrupted his planning, and he switched to video because too many questions had accumulated. Her face appeared instantly, bright with excitement despite scratches covering her bare arms and legs. That result proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. Her beginner clothes were torn in several places, showing how close the bronze chest guardian had come to killing her. Lee proudly announced that she had found treasure, then paused to wave enthusiastically at Kiki. The advantage made the new bond valuable beyond transportation or combat. The panda answered through the screen, creating a strangely normal moment inside a world built around death. Seos Shin asked about the injuries, and Lee admitted a monster had erupted beneath her near the chest. Her guardian was the same underground vine Seos Shin had fought, striking twice before drying into a brittle husk. Regional reports described other survivors facing thick snakes, giant rats, invasive insects, sudden thorns, and swarms from below. Every guardian emerged from underground, and many treasure hunters died before touching the reward. The advantage made the next decision depend on preserving enough strength. The regional population had already dropped by several hundred, proving exploration killed far more people than the leaderboard showed. Lee claimed she had wandered without direction until instinct led her directly to the hidden bronze chest. That explanation sounded like luck pushed beyond reasonable limits, especially after she survived the ambush. This visible proof made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. Her rewards matched everyone else's bronze chest: fertilizer, birch seeds, and pine seeds. That evidence strengthened the self-sufficient structure forming around the treehouse. Lee saw no current recipe using round wood or fine wood, so she considered the seed rewards almost pointless. Seos Shin nearly explained the renovation system, then kept silent about both the silver chest and his discernment. Information remained power, and even a friendly survivor could become dangerous once scarcity tightened. The warning made selective cooperation safer than answering every desperate stranger. When Lee bumped one injured arm against furniture, pain finally broke through her excitement. The experience showed how every scene carried a practical lesson. Seos Shin traded her hemostasis grass, and explained that the ordinary-looking plant could stop bleeding when applied externally. Her basic inspection revealed only a vague sentence, while his ability displayed grade, function, and precise limitations. That contrast confirmed how strong discernment truly was, even without explosive combat effects. The outcome kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Most survivors had to touch random weeds and hope descriptions appeared, making medicinal discovery incredibly unlikely. Lee praised his luck, and Seos Shin accepted the misunderstanding instead of exposing the cheat. The new connection kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. She offered to return earlier supplies because she planned to remain indoors for the night. The outcome forced Seos Shin to separate curiosity from necessary action. Seos Shin told her to keep everything and remember him whenever she found something valuable later. The request sounded casual, but Lee's impossible resource luck could become one of his greatest advantages. After ending the call, Seos Shin placed the golden compass on the table and activated it. The pointer spun several times before settling firmly toward the northwest. The discovery made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. Its 5-hour cooldown was far longer than the silver compass, confirming the gold chest would be much harder to locate. That direction led toward unfamiliar hills crowded with hostile marks, but the target should remain inside the protected radius. Seos Shin refused to begin another dangerous hunt hungry, so he roasted bear meat and mushrooms first. A full stomach could not guarantee victory, yet entering a brutal confrontation exhausted would guarantee failure. While moving the silver chest beside the bronze one, he noticed their engraved patterns connected. The contrast turned one successful discovery into several future advantages. The bronze chest carried a beast's tail and hind leg, while the silver chest formed its torso and front leg. Only the head remained missing, meaning the final image had been divided deliberately across all 3 containers. The scaled body resembled a kiln, dragon, deer, and something older than every creature Seos Shin knew. After seeing the giant python and hidden crocodile, he no longer dismissed mythical animals as impossible. The completed pattern might reveal a secret, unlock another reward, or identify the force behind the event. Night arrived without moonlight. Even though the moon had appeared almost full only one evening earlier, stars burned across the sky in a brilliant river that city life had never allowed Seos Shin to witness. The world's changing moon followed no earthly cycle, another reminder that familiar science offered limited comfort here. Seos Shin armed himself, settled Kiki on his shoulder, and began moving northwest around the lake. The map showed dense hostile dots circling its center, where the enormous python had previously surfaced. He threw his stone into the water, and the lake erupted with blood-red piranhas larger than his palm. Their saw-like teeth flashed as hundreds struck the disturbance, turning still water into violent foam. That result proved technique and positioning mattered more than blind aggression. A frightened grass carp entered the swarm moments later, and vanished beneath a spreading cloud of blood. Seos Shin immediately abandoned any thought of swimming for treasure, because the lake center offered only certain death. He followed the shoreline instead, using the compass for direction and the map to prevent walking in circles. Beyond familiar resource zones, darkness covered unmapped terrain. But neither earlier chest had appeared near obvious materials. Kiki gradually became sleepy, proving Blue-Orange's strength and Seos Shin while doing nothing for her fatigue. He carried the panda against his chest and continued through a jungle silent, enough to magnify every footstep. No insects called, no birds moved, and only leaves scraping together broke the darkness. The warning turned distance itself into another resource cost to manage. The compass still pointed forward when the system suddenly warned him that the 3-kilometer protection boundary was directly ahead. Beyond that invisible line, the northwest hills held a dense army of red marks less than a kilometer away. The gold chest remained unseen, leaving Seos Shin trapped between the compass's direction and the system's warning. Then an unnatural desire whispered that crossing the boundary once might finally reveal what the jungle was hiding. The thought began as curiosity, yet it swelled until Seos Shin's caution felt distant and strangely unimportant. One foot crossed the protected line, then another, while the system offered no second warning. This change turned one system message into a practical decision immediately. His body moved as though the desire had become an order, drawing him toward the hostile hills ahead. Kiki shifted inside his arms, and that tiny movement snapped his mind back into focus. That consequence gave Kiki another role beyond simply following Seos Shin. Seos Shin stopped before his third step landed, sensing violent danger directly beneath the intended footprint. The ground split open, launching a dark green vine several meters high with blood-red lines pulsing across it. He dragged his foot backward and retreated, but the vine did not chase him inside the boundary. After hovering briefly, it sank into the earth, and its hostile mark disappeared from the map. The attack frightened Seos Shin, but his own behavior terrified him more. The reaction made every strike part of a larger calculation rather than panic. He was naturally cautious and would never test a lethal restriction without preparation. The lesson showed how every scene carried a practical lesson. Something nearby had amplified one passing thought until raw desire overwhelmed judgment. In self-preservation, the outcome pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. Without Kiki's movement, the vine would have pierced his foot and possibly dragged him underground. The experience showed how quickly a small opening could decide the fight. Seos Shin ate another blue-orange, restoring mental clarity after the earlier enhancement had faded. The experience turned another basic meal into a source of morale. He studied the cracked soil and considered whether the protection radius acted like an invisible wall. To test it safely, he extended 1 foot beyond the line while keeping every muscle ready. A red mark appeared instantly, and a thicker vine burst upward with barbs covering its entire length. The creature twisted toward his ankle, but Seos Shin pulled back before it could wrap around him. It stopped exactly at the boundary, struck the invisible limit, then retreated after several frustrated movements. That experiment confirmed the treehouse protected survivors from underground creatures. Within its root range, the new connection proved the visible jungle represented only the safest layer. It also proved crossing the boundary exposed them immediately. Even when no surface beast was visible, the giant crocodile remained unexplained because it moved freely inside the protected area, without drying or attacking. Seos Shin suspected it belonged to a different category than the creatures buried beneath the soil. More urgently, the mental influence still surrounded him, meaning the gold chest guardian was probably nearby. He asked Kiki whether she sensed anything, and the sleepy panda became rigid almost immediately. The advantage showed why Seos Shin judged creatures through behavior instead of species. She jumped down, faced the darkness behind him, and raised both paws in her danger signal. Seos Shin drew his spear and followed as Kiki led him into a completely unmapped section of forest. A faint fragrance appeared first, gentle enough to resemble distant flowers after rain. The warning gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. The farther they traveled, the stronger it became, and small yellow blossoms began replacing ordinary weeds. Seos Shin's thoughts grew light again, while his walking speed increased without a conscious decision. This development made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. He pinched his arm hard, forcing himself to recognize the same compulsion that had pushed him across the boundary. The floral scent was attacking his mind, amplifying desire until caution disappeared. The decision kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. Seos Shin removed his shirt and tied it across his mouth and nose. Though the perfume still penetrated, Kiki remained completely unaffected, climbing back onto his shoulder while he advanced with the spear raised. Poplar trees gradually vanished, replaced by an endless sea of yellow flowers moving beneath the night wind. At the center rested a perfect golden treasure chest. glowing like the answer to every risk he had taken. Seos Shin's heart surged, but the untouched reward looked too convenient for the deadliest chest tier. No hostile mark appeared on the map, yet underground monsters remained hidden until moments before surfacing. He controlled every desire, crossed the flowers slowly, and reached the chest without triggering an attack. The strange ease weakened his caution again, making him question whether the perfume's danger had already passed. Seos Shin lowered his gaze toward the lock and prepared the golden key. This development showed how discernment extracted more value from every prize. Kiki released a confused chirp, the same sound she had made when he first mentioned seeing the chest. He paused and asked what bothered her, but the Panna only tilted her head toward empty space. That reaction struck harder than any warning, because Kiki and Seos Shin were clearly seeing different things. The real gold chest should carry the missing beast head, yet this object's engraving looked chaotic and meaningless. Seos Shin put the key away, stepped backward, and drove his stone spear into the supposed treasure. The impact produced the dull crack of stone instead of the sharp ring of metal. The advantage made the next objective clear without removing its danger. Golden light twisted, the illusion collapsed, and fragments exploded from an ordinary rock buried in the ground. A hostile dot brighter than the black bear flared across the map before fully forming. The outcome proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. Cracks raced through the broken stone. Then a massive blood-red flower erupted on a thorn-covered stalk. It rose nearly 10 meters, opening petals like a lamprey's mouth filled with inward-facing spikes. The discovery connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. Yellow growths covered the flesh-colored surface, while sticky liquid dripped from the hollow center. The discovery showed why he could never afford to stop learning. Seos Shin ran toward the nearest poplar as Kiki dropped from his shoulder and snarled at the monster. The flower released concentrated perfume, making his head spin despite the shirt covering his face. The outcome made the next decision depend on preserving enough strength. A thorny branch whipped toward his nose, missing by only a fraction as he bent backward. Another stabbed the soil where he had stood, sinking into earth as though it were soft clay. A third branch swept through the nearby poplar and snapped the trunk cleanly in half. The advantage turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. The guardian could destroy trees with one strike, making any direct hit potentially fatal despite his enhancements. Seos Shin dodged repeatedly, but every breath pulled more perfume into his lungs and slowed his reactions. A branch circled his ankle, tightened, and lifted him upside down before he could cut free. The flower dragged him toward its center, while Kiki screamed and rushed the root cluster below. Every branch targeted Seos Shin alone, allowing the panda to bite through the vine holding his leg. The brief interruption gave him enough time to pull the stone axe from his backpack. That evidence turned stored resources into force that could act on command. He swung into a fleshy petal, and the monster released a shrill whistle that shook the clearing. Axes carried a special advantage against plants, turning his ordinary tool into the correct weapon for this battle. The loosened vine dropped him onto the flower, where petals felt warm and disturbingly similar to animal flesh. Yellow bumps rose beneath his hands like warts, while the mouth began folding inward around him. Seos Shin chopped repeatedly, refusing to let the living trap seal completely. The new connection pushed Seos Shin to think one step beyond the present moment. Each strike cut deep, but the closing petals kept narrowing the remaining path to freedom. The reaction forced him to value survival above dramatic victory. His final swing buried the axe in the thickest section and stopped the closure halfway. The decision proved the jungle punished anyone confusing equipment with invincibility. The wounded petal suddenly hardened, cracked along the cut, and broke apart like dry material. The reaction made the consequences of one mistimmed movement immediately visible. Moisture drained from the entire flower, repeating the strange weakness shown by the bronze chest vine. What had felt fleshy moments earlier now crumbled beneath Seos Shin's palm. The outcome proved survival depended on using information immediately. The stalk tilted low enough for him to grab the brittle edge and lower himself toward the ground. His weight snapped the dried structure, sending the giant flower crashing into fragments behind him. The discovery showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Kiki jumped into his arms and buried her head against his chest after the narrow escape. Across the clearing, every yellow blossom withered together until the flower seed became barren soil. The moment forced Seos Shin to keep an escape route ready. Seos Shin sat with the panda on his lap, breathing carefully while replaying the hallucination. This visible proof gave Seos Shin support no solitary hunter could reproduce. The shirt had never protected him, and the perfume influenced his decisions before he recognized the danger. A clear-minded version of himself would have stored the chest and opened it somewhere safer. This visible proof showed why completing the full reward chain mattered. Instead, the scent made unlocking it inside an unnatural field feel completely reasonable. The observation proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. Kiki had never seen the illusion, explaining both confused calls and her hesitation near the fake reward. If Seos Shin had inserted the key, the rock would have cracked beneath the false image of an opening lid. The flower would have emerged within swallowing distance, leaving no time to run or raise a weapon. His discernment could expose items, but it could not identify something his senses had already misclassified. Only Kiki's different perception and Seos Shin's final suspicion prevented an instant death. The outcome showed why Seos Shin judged creatures through behavior instead of species. After resting, Seos Shin searched the dead guardian piece by piece, expecting the gold chest inside its remains. Nothing appeared beneath the petals, stalk, branches, or shattered stone. The reaction showed why he could never afford to stop learning. Clearing the debris exposed a narrow cave opening descending where the giant flower had emerged. The outcome turned the surrounding silence into another possible warning. His night vision showed a passage roughly 2 meters high, too low to inspect fully from outside. Kiki tugged his clothing, pointed into the darkness, and shaped a rectangle with both paws. The observation made the strange team around Seos Shin feel increasingly real. The gesture meant the real gold chest waited somewhere below. That evidence showed how one reward could unlock an entire crafting category. Seos Shin considered leaving because the silver chest already protected him from event elimination. The decision connected every chest tier with the next survival stage. The tunnel looked too narrow for dodging vines, and one blocked entrance could become a permanent grave. Kiki shook her head when asked about danger, maintaining the perfect confidence she had shown before every safe path. Her warnings had identified the bronze guardian and man-eating flower, while ignoring the harmless crocodile. This development proved raw power could appear before any visible warning. Trusting that record, Seos Shin decided to continue, but only after creating a reliable escape route. He used the blue shovel to widen the entrance and carve the vertical drop into a walkable slope. Seos Shin refreshed his red berry and orange effects, then entered with Kiki beside him. The decision made the new bond valuable beyond transportation or combat. The underground passage narrowed around his shoulders and descended steadily through rough soil. The moment made the world feel older, stranger, and more controlled. Every step carried him farther from the surface, while the silence pressed more heavily around them. The tunnel ended after several hundred meters, leaving only packed soil where another passage should have continued. By Seos Shin's estimate, they had descended more than 20 meters beneath the surface. This visible proof made the protected territory feel larger with every step. Kiki pawed at one patch of earth whose color differed slightly from the surrounding wall. That consequence showed how loyalty could emerge from danger instead of comfort. Without enhanced night vision, even a torch would have hidden the subtle change. That result gave the scene a calm surface hiding violent possibilities. Seos Shin moved her aside, pulled out the shovel, and began excavating the loosened ground. The pressure gave Seos Shin another controlled answer to approaching danger. Dirt accidentally splashed across Kiki's fur, earning an offended cry, and both paws wrapped around his calf. He apologized, brushed her clean, and promised another bath after returning home. The contrast pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. The deeper he dug, the more reddish the soil became, as though something had soaked it with old blood. That color matched the veins and barbs covering every underground plant monster. The pressure turned the surrounding silence into another possible warning. Kiki still showed no fear, thumping her chest when Seos Shin questioned whether the tunnel remained safe. He trusted her, but carved another sloped exit instead of creating a vertical pit. The lesson gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. Loose soil was spread behind them so nothing could block retreat during an emergency. That result made careful resource planning more valuable than random gathering. When the hole reached almost his full height, the shovel struck something hard with a metallic sound. Hope surged, yet the exposed object was iron rather than gold. The experience linked every successful hunt with safer equipment for the next. Seos Shin cleared more soil and uncovered a square underground hatch with a rusted handle. The contrast made caution necessary even when Kiki sensed no monster. Dark red corrosion covered its surface, while surrounding dirt glowed with the same contaminated tint. The moment showed how silence could create pressure without revealing an enemy. His discernment identified the earth as gray-grade soil corrupted by an unknown power, and useless to survivors. The only route forward now led through the iron door. The new connection converted raw materials into protection he could test directly. Seos Shin created a stable platform, grabbed the handle, and pulled using both strength enhancements. This visible proof connected the current action with the next survival problem. The hatch moved reluctantly, releasing a narrow gap and a screech that echoed through the tunnel. A foul stench exploded upward before he could open it farther. The experience kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. His grip failed, the edge slammed shut, and both Seos Shin and Kiki began gagging. The warning made trust between creatures another form of survival power. The odor resembled spoiled fish, rotten vegetables, mold, chemicals, and everything a human body rejected instinctively. It overwhelmed discomfort and became a physical attack against breathing itself. The experience proved technique and positioning mattered more than blind aggression. Seos Shin covered his face, forced the hatch completely open, then ran toward the surface and vomited. Kiki clung to the wall nearby, retching despite her normally fearless behavior. The warning gave Seos Shin support no solitary hunter could reproduce. Seos Shin waited at a safe distance because the smell might be toxic, not merely unbearable. Throwing up dinner left him weak, yet no other symptoms appeared while fresh air cleared his head. Seos Shin asked whether Kiki still intended to continue, and the panda hesitated before climbing onto his shoulder. That hesitation proved the smell frightened her, but not enough to contradict her belief that no monster waited below. Seos Shin tied his shirt over his face and returned while staying close to the tunnel floor. The remaining gas floated near the ceiling, revealing it was lighter than ordinary air. That consequence showed why some secrets were more dangerous than physical enemies. Crouching reduced the stench to a level he could endure until reaching the open hatch. The decision pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. Below waited a square iron shaft with an ancient ladder fixed to one wall. The warning connected earthly objects with a world that rejected earthly rules. The darkness continued beyond his enhanced vision, making the structure feel deeper than any natural cave. Rust covered every rung, yet the ladder held when Seos Shin placed his weight on it. He descended carefully while Kiki gripped his shirt with all four limbs. The pressure gave Seos Shin support no solitary hunter could reproduce. Minutes passed, then more minutes, until his arms burned and the entrance became a distant square overhead. The shaft consumed an impossible amount of iron, proving someone had built this place deliberately. The pressure showed why some secrets were more dangerous than physical enemies. Near exhaustion, Seos Shin dropped the final several meters and landed on solid metal flooring. The observation gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. He massaged trembling arms before turning toward an enclosed room without windows. The pressure connected the current action with the next survival problem. 3 walls consisted of flat iron plates, while the fourth contained a circular door resembling a bank vault. A humanoid skeleton rested against one wall, dressed in ruined wilderness clothing. That result made caution necessary even when Kiki sensed no monster. Seos Shin froze because another human presence was stranger than every monster encountered above. The advantage proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. The clothes resembled standard outdoor survival equipment, rather than anything created inside this world. The new connection made the world feel older, stranger, and more controlled. Beside the bones lay a bundle made from old beast hide, its surface flaking after decades underground. Seos Shin apologized to the dead stranger and carefully opened the bundle. That consequence made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Inside were a rusted multi-tool, empty lighter, broken flashlight, and packaging from Earth. The discovery made the world feel older, stranger, and more controlled. The equipment belonged to someone prepared for wilderness travel. Before reaching this impossible jungle, this development proved the best decision often protected more than one advantage. Faded letters appeared European, though Seos Shin could not identify the exact language. That evidence made every constructed detail feel purposeful rather than accidental. A production date on the compressed biscuit wrapper read 1980. The pressure connected another strange structure to an older hidden experiment, with ordinary shelf life. The traveler must have died nearly for decades before the current survivor batch. Someone from Earth had reached this world long before Seos Shin, possibly through an entirely different method. The discovery transformed an isolated survival game into part of a much older experiment. The pressure proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. Seos Shin searched the clothing and bones but found no diary, weapon, key, or explanation. The pressure gave him more options before enemies reached striking distance. Kiki suddenly called from behind the skeleton, staring at markings hidden by its body. The observation proved the contract preserved intelligence rather than obedience alone. When Seos Shin moved the remains, brittle bones collapsed and scattered across the floor. That consequence proved movement through the jungle was never truly routine. The skull rolled directly toward him and stopped facing upward with empty sockets exposed. The lesson kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Earthly logic said it was harmless. Yet this world had already broken to many scientific certainties. Seos Shin waited, half expecting movement, but the dead traveler remained completely still. The contrast turned the underground passage into evidence of deliberate planning. Behind the body, words had been carved into the iron beside dark stains resembling dried blood. The message used the same unfamiliar writing as the equipment, leaving its warning unreadable. The The lesson made the system's refusal to explain anything more unsettling. Finding the first written clue only to lack the language felt crueler than finding nothing. The contrast made the world feel older, stranger, and more controlled. Kiki abandoned the wall and began pushing the skull across the floor like a ball. This change connected emotional trust with practical survival benefits. Attention returned to the circular vault door, the only remaining route and perhaps the final barrier to the chest. Seos Shin stood on the inside, where no wheel or obvious mechanism controlled the lock. The new connection proved survival depended on using information immediately. He pushed with his entire body until metal grated and the door shifted sideways. The warning connected the current action with the next survival problem. A small gap opened, revealing pale red earth rather than another constructed chamber. This development deepened the evidence that this world had been designed deliberately. The iron room seemed buried alone between a vertical shaft and an unknown cavern. This visible proof connected another strange structure to an older hidden experiment. Before widening the gap, Seos Shin asked Kiki whether danger waited outside. The new connection turned mutual need into a partnership neither side expected. She shook her head and returned to batting the skull until he lifted her away. This development made every kilometer reveal another weakness in his current system. Seos Shin worked his fingers into the opening, dragged the vault door farther, and stepped through. After 2 instinctive steps, loose stone slipped over and edged directly in front of him. That pattern made the next objective clear without removing its danger. He stopped and looked down, discovering the cave ended at a cliff more than 1,000 meters high. An immense underground world spread beneath him, larger than any city and alive with monstrous movement. Emerald vines and blood-red tendrils twisted across the floor like rivers made from living muscle. That pattern made every strike part of a larger calculation rather than panic. Man-eating flowers many times larger than the surface guardian swallowed creatures, resembling dinosaurs. The pressure showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. A giant covered in green seaweed ripped thick vines apart and stuffed them into its mouth. Flying insects the size of cars circled glowing plants, their tails illuminating the darkness below. This change kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Every direction revealed creatures that violated scale, biology, and every law Seos Shin trusted. The moment made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. His map became an ocean of hostile red dots packed densely to separate. This visible proof proved the treehouse influenced more territory than anyone could see. From the cliff, he felt like an insect hidden near a ceiling while monsters ruled the room below. Kiki burrowed into his arms and trembled beneath pressure radiating upward from the giants. The new connection gave Seos Shin another reason to survive without becoming isolated. The system suddenly congratulated Seos Shin for becoming the first survivor in his batch to discover the underground world. A special reward would arrive after the exploration event ended. The lesson made rarity meaningful through function rather than appearance. The voice warned him never to reveal the secret to anyone who had not discovered it independently. Breaking that restriction would trigger punishment described only as extremely severe. The contrast proved survival depended on using information immediately. It also stated that survivors could not handle the underground world at their current stage. The decision turned the underground passage into evidence of deliberate planning. The next beast riot remained the immediate problem, and the treehouse remained Seos Shin's only true reliance. He demanded to know who created this place, why humans were brought here, and what waited below. The voice refused every question, insisting that secrets must be uncovered through survival. The contrast kept his next move tied to evidence rather than impulse. Its calm tone sounded almost kind against the nightmare landscape, which made the unanswered truth more disturbing. He looked across the ceiling and noticed countless downward bulges resembling root systems from distant treehouses. Survivors might be living directly above the monsters, protected by vast underground networks they could not see. Someone had placed humanity over an abyss and expected their shelters to become weapons. This change showed why understanding the roots could determine future survival. Kiki finally remembered the original mission, jumped down, and tugged Seos Shin toward another opening along the cliff. There, inside a shallow side cave, the genuine gold treasure chest glowed softly in the darkness. Its engraving displayed the missing beast head, confirming the three-piece pattern beyond doubt. That evidence showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Seos Shin inserted the golden key, turned it, and opened the final treasure without another illusion. Inside waited a gray potion and one thin purple grade contract. The decision showed why Seos Shin preserved even empty containers. The gray bottle contained a special treehouse root potion classified at purple grade. This development made careful resource planning more valuable than random gathering. Pouring it over the treehouse base would expand the protection radius by another 3 kilometers. That result made the difference between safety and danger clearly measurable. The current radius measured 3 kilometers, so one dose would double the distance to 6. The discovery made the protection boundary more than a simple line on the map. Because area expands faster than radius, the usable territory would become roughly 4 times larger. The decision showed why understanding mechanics could outperform stronger bodies. New forest, mines, beasts, and possibly another resource zone could all fall beneath the treehouse shield. The second item was a metal product's auto-unlock contract, also carrying purple grade value. This visible proof showed how Discernment extracted more value from every prize. Once activated, every metal recipe would appear automatically after Seos Shin obtained all required raw materials. Once, iron weapons, armor, machines, tools, and later technology had just become accessible through a single reward. The system announced that Seos Shin was the first survivor to open the complete bronze, silver, and gold chest set. Additional first clear compensation would be issued when the jungle exploration activity ended. The reaction made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. Even before that reward arrived, the 2 purple items already transformed his future. The observation made rarity meaningful through function rather than appearance. Seos Shin used the contract, and the card shattered into light that entered his body. This visible proof made careful inspection more valuable than immediate celebration. Strength flowed through his limbs again, but this enhancement also sharpened his mind. The warning kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. Every clue from the flower field, iron chamber, dead traveler, and underground world began connecting. That result proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. The gold chest had been placed beside the abyss deliberately, forcing successful hunters to witness the world's secret. Anyone cautious enough to avoid the tunnel would miss both the final chest and the truth. The decades-old skeleton proved earlier humans reached this world, long before the current region existed. That result connected another strange structure to an older hidden experiment. His equipment from Earth suggested another rival method, because present survivors had appeared without personal belongings. The red mist, isolated iron chamber, blood message, and sealed vault remained unexplained. That pattern made the next attack depend on information gathered from the last. Seos Shin suspected the giant python and river crocodile had connections to the underground ecosystem. The experience made caution more valuable than confidence for the next move. Water beneath the lake and stream could link directly to caverns far below the surface. The new connection made the world feel larger than the information available. The root potion offered another crucial clue about why soil guardians dried after attacking. That pattern connected the dead traveler with questions about earlier survivor batches. During treehouse growth, roots probably spread through the earth across the entire protection radius. That evidence made the world feel older, stranger, and more controlled. That hidden network could drain invading creatures whenever they surfaced inside protected territory. This visible proof proved future value mattered more than present appearance. Vines and flowers remained dangerous briefly, then lost moisture and crumbled into brittle remains. That evidence showed why he could never afford to stop learning. Expanding the roots would therefore expand both the safe zone and the treehouse's underground influence. The moment made caution necessary even when Kiki sensed no monster. The system's repeated warning made sense, because abandoning the shelter meant losing the only defense against buried monsters. Seos Shin stored the heavy gold chest inside his backpack and returned to the cliff one final time. Below, seaweed giants, impossible insects, colossal flowers, and blood vines continued fighting without noticing him. That evidence proved armor could reduce damage without removing physical danger. Those were enemies for a future stage, not opponents any survivor could challenge today. The lesson proved trust had to grow through repeated actions rather than promises. He silently promised to grow until that terrifying world no longer looked completely untouchable. That evidence connected earthly objects with a world that rejected earthly rules. Kiki refused to approach the edge, remaining low beside the vault until Seos Shin carried her away. The return climb through the shaft looked almost as threatening as the monsters below. The new connection showed how little the survivors understood about their surroundings. His arms were already exhausted, while the gold chest increased every movement's difficulty. This visible proof made rarity meaningful through function rather than appearance. Seos Shin ate an apple for energy, and a sudden hiss cut through the iron chamber. The half-open vault door slammed shut, sealing the cliff world behind them. The moment turned the underground passage into evidence of deliberate planning. Red gas began pouring from seams between the metal walls and floor. The pressure connected present events with threats waiting far beneath them. The same unbearable stench that escaped the hatch was now filling the entire room. The observation proved survival depended on using information immediately. Seos Shin jumped onto the ladder immediately and climbed with Kiki clinging to his shoulder. That consequence strengthened a bond ordinary system rules could not fully explain. At first, The haze rose slowly enough that he believed steady movement would keep them safe. His arms soon began shaking, forcing him to rest on one rung while sharing another apple with Kiki. Food and enhanced recovery restored enough strength to continue before the mist reached them. The observation made storage and preservation as important as gathering. Then Kiki screamed and pointed downward, where the red glow had accelerated to only several meters away. Pressure inside the chamber was forcing the gas upward faster with every passing second. The decision made caution necessary even when Kiki sensed no monster. Seos Shin increased his pace without wasting every remaining reserve too early. The outcome connected the current action with the next survival problem. The red cloud climbed from several meters to only 2, then almost touched his boots. The advantage turned preparation into a measurable combat advantage. When the exit appeared, he abandoned rhythm and surged toward the final rungs. The new connection connected the current action with the next survival problem. Seos Shin threw himself through the iron hatch and dragged the heavy cover shut behind him. A few wisps escaped through the narrowing gap, but the main cloud remained trapped inside. That pattern showed why he could never afford to stop learning. One breath still twisted his stomach, confirming that being swallowed by the mist would have ended badly. He collapsed beside the entrance with every limb trembling after the endless climb. This change turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. Kiki lay across his leg and tilted her head, apparently confused that he looked so destroyed. Several minutes later, Seos Shin walked outside and raised one hand against the bright afternoon sun. Ordinary jungle plants looked beautiful after the underground nightmare and blood-red gas. The observation proved battlefield control began before the first weapon moved. He only wanted to return home, sleep on the restoring bed, and forget the abyss temporarily. The walk still required more than an hour, revealing how badly his expanding territory needed transportation. Kiki slept comfortably on his shoulder, while Seos Shin served as the exhausted mount. The reaction made the strange team around Seos Shin feel increasingly real. Near the lake, he noticed the piranhas had moved slightly closer to shore than before. This visible proof showed why carrying capacity affected exploration distance directly. Their expansion remained gradual, but repeated observations removed the possibility of coincidence. The warning showed how every scene carried a practical lesson. If the swarm reached the shallows or stream, water collection and fishing would become dangerous. This development made the protected territory feel larger with every step. Seos Shin marked the threat for later and continued toward the treehouse. This visible proof gave his expanding territory another reliable source of power. At the base, he poured the Grey Root potion over exposed roots. This development showed why production speed could matter as much as combat strength. The system announced secondary growth lasting 2 hours and disabled entry or exit during the process. After surviving several kilometers underground and above, Seos Shin had finally reached home only to be locked outside. The aerial routes used for transportation were still roots, so active growth temporarily stopped their normal function. His seeds and fertilizer remained upstairs, preventing immediate planning despite the unlocked renovation recipes. The advantage made every harvested material serve more than one purpose, rather than waste time complaining. Seos Shin cleared a broad patch of green soil for future birch and pine trees. The blue stone axe felled white poplars in 1 strike and green ones in 2. That consequence proved even wounded enemies remained dangerous until fully controlled. He stacked harvested wood while Kiki slept on top of the gold chest like a tiny guard. Most of the clearing contained green-grade soil, enough for widely spaced trees without improving every pale section. Seos Shin gathered reeds near the lake and dug lotus roots for the evening meal. The decision turned excess supplies into resources other survivors desperately needed. Another glance confirmed the piranha swarm had widened its territory again. This development showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. The problem could not be ignored forever, especially if the fish entered connected waterways. The warning turned familiar ground into a measurable strategic advantage. Finally, the system announced that secondary root growth was complete. That evidence turned one system message into a practical decision immediately. The treehouse protection radius expanded from 3 kilometers to 6, bringing the northwest hills inside. The outcome showed why understanding mechanics could outperform stronger bodies. Seos Shin carried Kiki, wood, tools, and the gold chest upstairs in several trips. This development made protecting his companions part of every future decision. On the 3rd floor, he dropped his backpack and collapsed onto the wooden bed. This development showed how technology could replace risks his body once carried. Restorative energy washed through his body almost immediately, easing the strain of the underground expedition. The reaction deepened the evidence that this world had been designed deliberately. Kiki curled beside him and fell asleep before Seos Shin could even remove every piece of equipment. The mysterious voice interrupted their rest by announcing the end of the jungle exploration activity. The moment proved survival depended on using information immediately. A regional leaderboard would reward the top 100 survivors according to treasure and material gains. Those at the bottom received no ordinary failure penalty. The experience made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. The lowest 50 were given 10 minutes to say goodbye before permanently leaving the world. The lesson proved the visible jungle represented only the safest layer. Seos Shin opened the new leaderboard and found his real name displayed in first place. The discovery connected Ji Choyang's planning with Seos Shin's production strength. His record showed all 3 treasure chests plus multiple high-grade materials. The experience kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. Ji Choyang ranked second with the same complete chest set and a blue highest resource grade. Only one survivor stood close enough to understand what Seos Shin had discovered below. The decision proved Li Manhe's cheerful image had serious strategic ability. Li Manhe appeared in 4th place after collecting silver and bronze chest. That consequence turned private trust into a resource no marketplace could list. Her position among thousands shattered the harmless image of a lucky, cheerful beginner. The pressure proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. Across the entire region, only 9 survivors had opened silver chest. This development pushed Seos Shin to think one step beyond the present moment. Li had hidden combat ability, resource access, judgment, or perhaps another cheat of her own. The observation connected the current action with the next survival problem. The public ranking also destroyed Seos Shin's anonymity, placing his name above the famous Ji Choyang. Ji had guided survivors during the Beast Riot and dramatically reduced the region's death rate. The new connection forced him to measure hostility separately from physical strength. The channel immediately exploded with questions about the unknown first-place survivor. The moment connected Seos Shin with allies who filled his missing capabilities. Some accused Seos Shin of impossible luck, while others begged him for help before the countdown ended. One man celebrated ranking barely above elimination because chopping trees in frustration had earned green wood. Another used his final minutes to leave a bitter farewell for someone he had loved. The outcome made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. Joy, resentment, terror, and envy collided across the screen as the bottom 50 watch time disappeared. When 10 minutes passed, every doomed account went silent at once. The warning made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. The sudden silence chilled the entire channel more effectively than any visible execution. That evidence made careful boundaries necessary even inside a useful alliance. The system awarded first place 1 limited purple grade tool, while 2nd through 10th received blue tools. Ranks 11 through 100 earned green rewards, and everyone else received only encouragement. The lesson made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. A rest day would follow before another event, but Seos Shin focused entirely on the purple claim button. He reached into a sphere of violet light and pulled out an exquisite silver mechanical watch. His discernment identified it as a treehouse watch carrying every screen function. Throughout the protected territory, daily arm movement wound the mechanism, eliminating batteries, charging, fuel, and maintenance. The outcome proved armor could reduce damage without removing physical danger. Its reinforced face could even block a blade during an emergency. The pressure kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. A projected screen appeared above his wrist, providing chat, trade, crafting, ranking, and reward access. The new connection connected Ji Choyang's planning with Seos Shin's production strength. The watch transformed every expedition because Seos Shin could now manage resources. Without returning home, this development converted Li Manhe's iron into immediate defensive power. Lower-ranked blue watches offered communication and information, but only his purple version included remote trading and crafting. That difference gave first place an exclusive ability no other survivor in the region possessed. That pattern connected leadership decisions with consequences across thousands of lives. Seos Shin finally arranged the bronze, silver, and gold chests together in their proper order. The new connection gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. The engraved pieces connected into a fierce mythical beast resembling dragon, tiger, deer, and ancient mount. White light spread through all 3 containers until solid metal became transparent and began twisting inward. The chest vanished completely, collapsing into one glowing orb before Seos Shin could preserve their valuable metals. A contract card appeared inside the light, created only after completing the full treasure set. The experience made rarity meaningful through function rather than appearance. The ordinary reward could bind one mount weighing no more than 100 kilograms. The new connection made protecting his companions part of every future decision. Because Seos Shin was the first complete set survivor, the contract upgraded from green to blue grade. The improved version accepted mounts weighing up to 300 kilograms. The warning showed why he could never afford to stop learning. It also healed every injury the creature had suffered before the contract succeeded. The warning connected every chest tier with the next survival stage. Transportation had become essential after the protection radius expanded to 6 kilometers. The warning connected root growth with the system's repeated survival warnings. Losing 3 metal chests hurt, but receiving a powerful mount could multiply every future expedition. That pattern gave Seos Shin another reason to survive without becoming isolated. Seos Shin planned to search the Northwest Hills during the official rest day. That consequence made every available clue part of the decision-making process. The metal contract had also unlocked a completely new category across his crafting benches. The pressure-turned event ranking into technology, mobility, and influence. Iron backbows offered tremendous power and range, but demanded skill no beginner possessed. The moment made ammunition and positioning as important as raw strength. Crossbows separated drawing from aiming, trading speed for accuracy and simple operation. The pressure linked every successful hunt with safer equipment for the next. For Seos Shin, who had never trained with a bow, that design was infinitely more practical. Iron spears, knives, swords, and daggers appeared, though his blue stone spear remained stronger for now. A complete green iron armor set could block ordinary beast attacks. The pressure forced Seos Shin to keep an escape route ready. Its weakness was crushing weight, especially across the helmet, boots, greaves, and scale-covered torso. The decision made future confrontations safer without making them harmless. Repeated contract enhancements made Seos Shin strong enough to wear it without becoming helpless. The discovery connected every chest tier with the next survival stage. Safety mattered more than backpack capacity, so armor became the immediate priority. The reaction proved a single upgrade could reshape his entire fighting style. He messaged Lee Manhwa for iron, but the 4th-ranked survivor remained outside and did not answer. His private inbox had exploded after the leaderboard exposed first place. That consequence connected leadership decisions with consequences across thousands of lives. Thousands offered praise, begging, trades, alliances, manipulation, and shameless demands for free supplies. The outcome showed why he could never afford to stop earning. Seos Shin ignored almost everything until Ji Choyang asked whether he knew the world's hidden secret. The wording confirmed that second place had discovered the underground world, beside his own gold chest. Seos Shin replied cautiously, and Ji proposed exchanging information through a private voice call. The lesson connected the current action with the next survival problem. Silence followed the connection because either man could trigger punishment by revealing the wrong detail. The lesson made every route part of his preparation for returning safely. Ji finally said underground world, proving their secrets matched without unnecessary risk. This development showed how little the survivors understood about their surroundings. Relief loosened both voices, and they compared enormous plants, deep monsters, and the cliff beside the gold chest. Their gold rewards were identical, showing that every chest tier distributed standardized supplies. The observation proved timing could matter as much as the reward itself. Ji lacked discernment but had reasoned out the root potion and metal contract through careful observation. That intelligence made him more impressive than a survivor relying only on obvious strength. This development made selective cooperation safer than answering every desperate stranger. Ji proposed forming a small organization centered on the region's strongest treasure hunters. The outcome proved strong survivors were already forming new centers of power. Only silver chest survivors could join, concentrating equipment access, rare resources, and reliable information. That result connected every chest tier with the next survival stage. Seos Shin and Ji would control metal production, while other experts supplied ore, wood, medicine, and specialized materials. The group could trade internally at agreed prices instead of competing publicly, or wasting time gathering everything alone. Ji already knew the survivors ranked 3rd, 5th, and 7th after helping them locate their silver chest. With 1st and 2nd place united, the remaining experts would have strong reasons to cooperate. The lesson made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. The treehouse system allowed exclusive group chats, but each survivor could belong to only one organization. Seos Shin asked how Ji found silver chest, hoping to understand his peaceful crocodile encounter. The decision forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. Ji had searched a stream where current and sound changed around a hidden guardian. The lesson showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. His creature was a table-sized turtle that attacked immediately and bit through a blue weapon. That evidence showed how preparation converted danger into manageable choices. Other members found similar stream guardians after following Ji's guidance. The contrast connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. Seos Shin admitted only that his chest also came from a stream. The reaction proved standardized prizes could still create unequal outcomes. The enormous crocodile remained private because its size, neutrality, and absence from the map made no sense. Every underground creature appeared hostile, suggesting the crocodile might not belong to that ecosystem at all. Seos Shin accepted the partnership after judging Ji intelligent, practical, and helpful without becoming self-destructive. The decision proved the contract preserved intelligence rather than obedience alone. A video call revealed a refined young man with careful hair and unexpectedly clean beginner clothing. Ji was equally surprised that first place looked handsome rather than brutal. The decision made his first place result valuable beyond public recognition. Their conversation returned to the underground world and its relationship with surface guardians. The discovery made the system's refusal to explain anything more unsettling. Ji noticed the colossal monsters below were far larger than creatures attacking survivors from ordinary soil. The giants also seemed incapable of reaching the ceiling 1,000 meters above them. The reaction connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. Together they identified 3 threat categories: surface beasts, mid-sized soil guardians, and colossal underground monsters. This change proved humans had entered this place long before his batch. The smaller plant creatures might have been created deliberately, as training versions of future enemies. This visible proof kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. That possibility made every survivor resemble a laboratory subject being prepared for an unknown war. The decision made Li Manny's hidden support more valuable than open praise. Ji believed capable people should be preserved whenever helping them did not harm stronger survivors. The advantage made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Yet he admitted the lowest 50 had to die regardless, so saving the least prepared would only change who suffered. The cold logic disturbed Seos Shin, but it also explained why Ji's guidance remained effective instead of sentimental. They ended the call with Ji promising to establish the organization. The experience proved trust had to grow through repeated actions rather than promises. Seos Shin returned to ordinary survival by grilling bear meat and lotus root for dinner. The pressure made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. After eating, he carried fertilizer, birch seeds, and pine seeds into the clearing below. The discovery linked present work with protection needed during later events. One birch seed pushed a sprout through green soil within seconds. The lesson made every harvested material serve more than one purpose. Without enhancement, the young tree still required 10 days to mature. That consequence connected his caution with visible, repeatable results. Seos Shin sprinkled one fertilizer portion, and the remaining time collapsed from 10 days to 10 hours. The supposed junk reward had just become overnight industrial production. The pressure showed why completing the full reward chain mattered. He planted 30 birch trees and 30 pine trees in carefully spaced rows. That result connected another basic supply to his growing survival network. 10 of each received fertilizer, promising 50 fine wood and 50 round wood by morning. That consequence turned a simple material into part of a larger system. The remaining portions stayed reserved because no public marketplace offered replacement fertilizer. The contrast showed why production speed could matter as much as combat strength. A simple wooden rail enclosed the saplings and protected the future supply chain. This change made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. His watch buzzed before he finished, revealing Li Manny's excited video call. That consequence showed why alliances needed rules before resources changed hands. She praised the mysterious first-place big shot while standing dusty and exhausted outside her treehouse. The experience gave Seos Shin another reason to protect his production chain. Seos Shin congratulated her on 4th place and questioned whether luck alone could explain it. The advantage pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. Li laughed, claimed fortune carried her, and admitted searching for a gold chest until the event ended. She possessed multiple mine entrances without resident beast, and more iron than her storage could handle. The revelation solved Seos Shin's greatest mental bottleneck before it could become a real problem. That result pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. Li agreed to join Ji's organization immediately because Seos Shin had already accepted. This development connected leadership decisions with consequences across thousands of lives. She also offered enough iron for 2 matching armor sets, asking him to craft one for her. Seos Shin warned that ordinary green iron would be painfully heavy. The new connection gave the treehouse another layer of active protection. Li flexed playfully, insisted a contract had strengthened her, and refused to be treated as fragile. Moments later, she traded smelted green blocks plus 8 blue-grade iron blocks. The lesson gave Seos Shin another controlled answer to approaching danger. The blue material alone exceeded the value of everything Seos Shin had previously given her. The decision proved survival depended on using information immediately. Li claimed for blocks repaid to oranges, pretending the extravagant exchange was ordinary. That evidence proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. Seos Shin teased her embarrassment, but privately recognized how dangerous her mineral wealth could become. That pattern forced Seos Shin to separate curiosity from necessary action. He used the blue iron to craft a complete armor sets. The decision reduced one weakness while exposing another limitation to solve. High-grade material removed the bulk while improving defense against large beasts. The new connection made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. The helmet preserved vision, the boots improved movement, and all for pieces granted a strength set bonus. Seos Shin equipped one set and felt more agile than he had wearing simple beginner clothes. He traded the second set to Lee, completing the region's first hidden partnership between farming knowledge and mineral abundance. The blue armor's only obvious weakness was noise, because every movement produced crisp metal clanks that destroyed stealth. Seos Shin planned to test it against beasts in the Northwest Hills and collect tendons for ranged weapons. Before that expedition, exhaustion from 2 days without real sleep finally overwhelmed him. The warning turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. He removed the equipment, collapsed beside Kiki, and promised another bath before drifting into darkness. The new connection gave Kiki another role beyond simply following Seos Shin. A buzz from the mechanical watch woke him shortly after sunrise. The lesson made careful maintenance part of staying alive. Ji Choyang had invited him into a new group called the Explorers. The moment showed how cooperation could multiply advantages without becoming charity. 7 silver chest survivors were already inside, with 2 remaining invitations still unresolved. This visible proof made his first place result valuable beyond public recognition. Messages welcomed first place, joked about strength, and immediately asked whether metal equipment would become available. She clarified that crafting required materials and compensation, preventing anyone from expecting free armor. The moment linked every successful hunt with safer equipment for the next. Seos Shin agreed publicly, establishing equal rules before the organization grew complicated. That result turned public attention into pressure Seos Shin had to manage. A question about animal tendons revealed that nobody had harvested them. During the earlier beast riot, several survivors had killed wolves or found carcasses, yet the critical material never appeared. The observation forced Seos Shin to preserve strength for the next exchange. The system may have intentionally blocked ranged weapons during the earliest survival stage. That evidence made future confrontations safer without making them harmless. Seos Shin closed the screen and placed Kiki inside a basin for the promised bath. This visible proof gave Seos Shin another reason to survive without becoming isolated. Despite caves, soil, blood, and monster fragments, the panda remained cleaner than Seos Shin after ordinary travel. Once breakfast ended, he descended to inspect the trees fertilized the previous evening. The experience made the true scale of the territory impossible to ignore. Every birch and pine had reached full size in only 10 hours. The reaction linked present work with protection needed during later events. His discernment identified birch output as fine wood and pine output as round wood. The new connection proved future value mattered more than present appearance. The seed bags had become immediate access to specialized construction materials, unavailable from ordinary poplars. This development gave Seos Shin another reason to protect his production chain. Seos Shin harvested all 20 accelerated trees with the blue axe. The outcome reduced one weakness while exposing another limitation to solve. The renovation menu now allowed treehouse wooden armor, requiring 2 pieces of round wood per section. Each curved half-cylinder covered roughly 1 meter of the trunk after installation. The observation made the next objective clearer without removing its danger. Protecting the entire exposed base required 20 complete sections and 40 round wood. The new connection gave Seos Shin another reason to protect his production chain. Seos Shin crafted everything at once and fitted the pieces around the banyan trunk. The contrast made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Once locked together, the armor blended with natural bark until the reinforcement became difficult to notice. His overnight crop had already transformed into permanent defense before most survivors understood why the seeds existed. That visible payoff erased any remaining doubt about the value of his so-called junk sheet. That pattern pushed Seos Shin to think one step beyond the present moment. Seos Shin stored excess materials, equipped the blue iron set, and took his stone spear. The experience proved a single upgrade could reshape his entire fighting style. Kiki climbed onto his shoulder without invitation, making it clear she intended to join. The moment showed why companionship could matter as much as equipment. They moved northwest around the lake, where the piranha swarm had spread slightly wider again. The experience forced him to measure hostility separately from physical strength. The aquatic threat remained unresolved, but today's objective was collecting tendons inside the protected hills. The reaction made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. At the old 3-kilometer boundary, Seos Shin extended 1 foot and waited. This visible proof connected root growth with the system's repeated survival warnings. No warning appeared, no red mark flared, and no vine erupted from beneath him. This change proved the jungle punished hesitation and recklessness equally. The expanded roots now protected the surrounding hills exactly as the potion promised. The contrast kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. Using map brightness, Seos Shin selected an isolated beast comparable to the previous black bear. This visible proof made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. The target rested inside a cave between the hills where white crystals protruded from the ground. It was not a bear, but a huge black wild boar weighing more than 200 kilograms. Seos Shin immediately saw both meat and a possible salt deposit in the same location. The reaction proved food security could become power instead of mere comfort. Days of flavorless food made the white crystals almost more exciting than the animal guarding them. He still treated the boar seriously because one charge could break bones, even if armor stopped the tusks. Trying to approach quietly failed when the iron plates announced him with every step. This development showed why range could decide fights before armor became necessary. The boar lifted its head, exposed to curved tusks, and watched Seos Shin with growing aggression. He stopped behind a thick poplar and prepared to use the trunk as cover. This change showed why Seos Shin survived by thinking several steps ahead. The animal kicked backward, lowered its head, and charged with enough force to shake the ground. Seos Shin moved behind the tree, and one tusk carved a deep groove through the bark. The attack proved jungle beasts were stronger than familiar animals from Earth. The experience showed how one direct hit could reverse the balance instantly. After overshooting, the boar turned and charged again without hesitation. That result made every injury create both weakness and new opportunity. This time, Seos Shin dodged sideways and dragged the blue spear across its flank. The moment made the next attack depend on information gathered from the last. A deep bloody line opened, but pain only made the animal more violent. The discovery proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. He repeated the maneuver, using the tree to limit speed while avoiding a direct collision. That pattern showed how every scene carried a practical lesson. Kiki suddenly jumped from his shoulder and landed on the boar's back. The reaction connected one rescue life with a much stronger traveling team. Her hidden claws sank into its scalp while sharp teeth clamped onto one ear. The warning forced Seos Shin to track distance, speed, and escape together. The boar screamed, shook wildly, and aimed its head toward another tree to crush her. The advantage turned one visible enemy into several hidden calculations. Kiki released at the final moment and landed safely beside Seos Shin. That consequence turned Silver King's defeat into the beginning of cooperation. The boar struck the trunk hard enough to stun itself and scatter leaves overhead. The moment proved the jungle punished anyone confusing equipment with invincibility. Seos Shin rushed forward and drove the spear deep into its side. The discovery converted Li Manhe's iron into immediate defensive power. A tusk scraped across his blue armor during the struggle, producing a grinding metallic shriek. The warning connected crafting knowledge directly with battlefield survival. The plates held without bending, allowing Seos Shin to pull free and target the animal's eye. His next thrust entered the skull, stopping the boar after several final seconds of trembling. The new connection proved armor could reduce damage without removing physical danger. Seos Shin stabbed again before relaxing, unwilling to trust a creature that powerful too quickly. The new connection showed why reputation could create both leverage and danger. The armor displayed only a shallow scratch where the tusk had landed. The outcome made his crafting monopoly valuable beyond simple trade. That result proved blue iron could withstand force that would have torn through beginner clothing. And flesh. Butchering produced intact green hide, bone, one animal tendon, and roughly 180 kilograms of pork. The tendon finally unlocked his personal crossbow plan. The decision converted raw materials into protection he could test directly. Before celebrating, Kiki screamed and pointed toward movement deeper inside the hills. The experience proved Kiki's smallest reactions could redirect deadly situations. A whole herd of black boars charged toward the dead animal's final cries. The observation showed how preparation converted danger into manageable choices. Seos Shin stored his spear, grabbed the thickest tree, and climbed while ordering Kiki upward. That evidence connected one rescued life with a much stronger traveling team. The panda reached a branch easily and watched him struggle through armor that rang against the bark. Boars surrounded the trunk, rammed it, rooted through soil, and exposed thick roots beneath. This development forced Seos Shin to track distance, speed, and escape together. Blood covered Seos Shin's equipment, giving their powerful noses every reason to remain. That evidence proved technique and positioning mattered more than blind aggression. The tree measured nearly half a meter across, yet repeated impacts still made the canopy shake. Fighting the entire herd on the ground would have been suicide regardless of armor quality. The discovery reduced one weakness while exposing another limitation to solve. For almost half an hour, Seos Shin waited while Kiki treated the scene like entertainment. That consequence proved that contract preserved intelligence rather than obedience alone. One boar wandered away, then several followed, until only a stubborn animal remained digging below. The advantage forced Seos Shin to watch the map and Kiki together. Seos Shin checked the map and confirmed the main herd had moved beyond immediate sight. This visible proof made every system warning impossible to dismiss casually. He pulled out the spear, aimed behind the last boar's skull, and jumped from the tree. The point drove through bone under his falling weight, collapsing the animal before it could scream. Several additional thrusts ensured the body remained still. The pressure gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. The second carcass yielded another tendon, hide, bone, and around 160 kilograms of meat. Even with reduced weight, carrying more than 300 kilograms of pork would slow every movement. Seos Shin refused to abandon earned food, then remembered the Purple Watch could trade remotely. This development showed how secrecy protected both resources and relationships. He contacted Li Manny and asked her to store the meat until his return. The observation connected Seos Shin with allies who filled his missing capabilities. Li accepted 1/10 as compensation, trusting him enough to receive the entire load immediately. The new connection kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. The trade removed the burden from the ground and freed Seos Shin's backpack within seconds. The outcome turned private trust into a resource no marketplace could list. No other watch could perform that exchange outside a treehouse. This development connected crafting knowledge directly with battlefield survival. The convenience transformed Li from a distant ally into a mobile extension of his storage system. Seos Shin entered the cave and pried one white crystal from the floor with his knife. Discernment confirmed it contained edible salt after proper extraction. The experience connected hunting success with both survival and economic leverage. Every survivor needed salt, yet public food consisted mostly of plain meat, fruit, and wild plants. Control of a salt mine could generate resources far beyond its ordinary appearance. The moment moved his priorities beyond hunger toward long-term self-sufficiency. Seos Shin mined about 20 kilograms, stopping because the deposit would remain available later. This development showed why preparation remains stronger than empty confidence. He climbed a nearby hill to scout the newly protected territory from above. The advantage proved future value mattered more than present appearance. Beyond the ridge lay a large basin filled with beast, forest, a small lake, and dense green resources. Several stronger blue glows stood out, especially round distant stone pillars crowned with animal statues. That evidence made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. The structure looked valuable, ancient, and far more dangerous than the Black Bear Cave. The decision made the next decision depend on preserving enough strength. Boars, wild cattle, deer, foxes, wolves, and a tiger moved through the basin below. That evidence showed why transportation had become an urgent survival need. Seos Shin refused to approach without ranged weapons. Because multiple predators could surround him before retreat, he decided to search only the outer edge for isolated targets and then return home. The new connection made the following decision more deliberate and controlled. The decision preserved curiosity without letting it override the caution that had already saved his life repeatedly. Kiki shifted comfortably on his shoulder as they descended toward the resource zone's quieter perimeter. The warning connected emotional trust with practical survival benefits. Inside the outer forest, Kiki spotted a camouflaged snake resting on stone almost identical to its scales. Without her warning, Seos Shin might have walked within striking range before noticing anything. The new connection gave Seos Shin another rule he could test through action. The creature measured only 3 fingers thick, making it far less intimidating than the giant python. Blue iron covered nearly every vulnerable area, so Seos Shin decided to test the armor deliberately. He told Kiki to wait above while approaching, as though the snake remained unseen. The lesson showed how loyalty could emerge from danger instead of comfort. The panda climbed a nearby tree quickly, showing far more fear of snakes than wild boars. Seos Shin passed the rock, and the hidden predator launched at his leg. The discovery made the protection boundary feel like a genuine lifeline. It wrapped around one greave and bit down with a sharp crack. The decision made the next attack depend on information gathered from the last. Both fangs snapped against the blue metal, leaving the snake writhing on the ground. The moment turned the surrounding silence into another possible warning. Seos Shin pinned the body beneath one boot and crushed the head with the other. The lesson made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. He repeated the strike, then used the spear to confirm the animal was completely dead. This visible proof made timing more important than the amount of force available. Uncoiled, the snake stretched nearly 2.5 meters and looked far more dangerous. This visible proof forced him to measure hostility separately from physical strength. Kiki returned cautiously, poking the corpse until Seos Shin joked that it might still bite. That evidence proved the jungle punished anyone confusing equipment with invincibility. The panda sprang onto his shoulder instantly, making him laugh despite the tense surroundings. The outcome proved Kiki's smallest reactions could redirect deadly situations. Butchering produced 15 kilograms of meat, 1 venom sac, 1 tendon, and exquisite blue-grade snakeskin. The observation turned another basic meal into a source of morale. The hide immediately offered two possibilities: superior leather armor or an upgraded backpack. The discovery proved a single upgrade could reshape his entire fighting style. Iron armor dominated direct fights, but its noise made hunting fast herbivores and cautious prey difficult. A blue leather set could support stealth later, yet carrying capacity remained the more urgent limitation. The venom sac could coat ammunition, allowing shallow wounds to weaken creatures too powerful for ordinary bolts. With 3 animal tendons, blue hide, venom, salt, and meat, the expedition had already succeeded. That result showed why flavor and variety still mattered under pressure. A nearby blue-grade poplar supplied rare wood after several swings from the axe. The reaction showed why the correct tool mattered more than reckless courage. Seos Shin looked once more toward the stone pillars hidden deeper in the basin. The warning kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Blue light mixed around the structure, stronger than the glow from any ordinary cave. The advantage turned the underground passage into evidence of deliberate planning. He still turned away because equipment upgrades mattered more than satisfying one dangerous question. This visible proof made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. The basin's ground exit was blocked by the wild boar herd, so Seos Shin crossed the surrounding hill instead. Few beasts occupied the slopes, allowing him to gather scattered green material safely. The lesson made the next objective clear without removing its danger. The walk home still consumed almost an hour, making the mount contract feel more valuable with every step. Kiki rested comfortably on his shoulder, while Seos Shin carried armor, meat, salt, wood, venom, and tools. Back at the treehouse, he searched the synthesis bench for equipment capable of refining salt. That consequence connected another basic supply to his growing survival network. The metal contract revealed a green-grade distillation extractor using iron blocks and green wood. The observation showed why the correct tool mattered more than reckless courage. Raw crystals and water entered the machine, fuel burned below, and clean table salt emerged after processing. Only Seos Shin and Ji Chuan could craft that iron device after opening gold chest. The reaction made careful boundaries necessary even inside a useful alliance. Even if another survivor discovered salt, they still lacked the technology required to purify it efficiently. Seos Shin built the extractor immediately and loaded his first batch. The decision proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. While it heated, he used the blue snakeskin to craft an exquisite backpack. That consequence made future confrontations safer without making them harmless. The new pack doubled storage from 10 slots to 20 and reduced weight to 1/10. That single upgrade erased the limitation that had made 300 kilograms of meat impossible to carry. Next came crossbow bolts using iron heads, wooden shafts, and eagle feathers stored from the beast riot. Feathers remained the bottleneck, so Seos Shin produced 40 reusable bolts instead of wasting the entire supply. 20 stayed ordinary, while 1 green venom sac coated the remaining 20. The advantage proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. The poison bolts carried a faint green film and could kill small beasts or weaken larger ones. Seos Shin then crafted a green crossbow using fine wood, iron, and 1 animal tendon. The new connection gave him more options before enemies reached striking distance. The weapon felt heavier than expected, with a powerful string difficult to draw by hand. The decision proved a single upgrade could reshape his entire fighting style. A front brace allowed him to place 1 foot down, pull upward, and cock the mechanism safely. He loaded 1 bolt, aimed through the window, and pressed the trigger. The contrast reduced 1 weakness while exposing another limitation to solve. The shot buried itself deeply into a poplar trunk, exactly where Seos Shin intended. That consequence made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. For someone without archery experience, accurate range damage had become real after 1 test. This development connected the current action with the next survival problem. He crafted a compact quiver capable of holding 100 bolts and attached it at his side. The remaining tendons went into the renovation menu's automatic heavy crossbow. The advantage made careful maintenance part of staying alive. Green fine wood and iron formed a weapon nearly 2 meters across, mounted outside the first floor. A circular loading port and simple joystick appeared inside the wall. The new connection made his crafting monopoly valuable beyond simple trade. 5 massive iron bolts slid through the port, cocking the weapon automatically with each insertion. The experience connected crafting knowledge directly with battlefield survival. The control moved the crossbow manually, fired on command, or enabled automatic targeting. The new connection made the next attack depend on information gathered from the last. Seos Shin aimed at another white poplar and pulled the firing control. This change made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. One heavy bolt punched completely through the trunk and snapped the tree in half. The warning showed why range could decide fights before armor became necessary. The projectile's force made ordinary wolves, boars, and deer look painfully vulnerable. The pressure reduced one weakness while exposing another limitation to solve. Its fixed position left blind spots around other sides of the treehouse. That evidence made every harvested material serve more than one purpose. More weapons would solve that later, but even one transformed the shelter's offensive power. This development showed why the correct tool mattered more than reckless courage. Seos Shin retrieved the reusable bolt, reloaded, and left automatic mode disabled to avoid wasting ammunition. The seed reward had now completed its full chain from planning to timber to automated killing power. Fine would form the heavy crossbow, round would armor the trunk, and fertilizer delivered both overnight. Thousands saw useless seed bags, while Seos Shin saw an industrial system hidden inside survival rewards. The salt extractor finished shortly afterward, producing clean crystals indistinguishable from packaged seasoning. The decision made every stored portion valuable before spoilage could claim it. Seos Shin tasted one pinch and nearly laughed from relief. That consequence showed why Seos Shin's caution came from responsibility, not weakness. Every meal since arriving had lacked the basic flavor his body expected without conscious thought. That consequence turned another basic meal into a source of morale. He cut bear meat and snake meat, then added lotus root, mushrooms, and fresh wild vegetables. A light layer of refined salt hit the hot food, releasing a rich smell across the treehouse. Kiki abandoned her apple and approached with intense curiosity despite usually ignoring meat. The advantage proved the contract preserved intelligence rather than obedience alone. Seos Shin offered a small portion, and the panda tasted it before eating with delighted chirps. Salt transformed basic grilled meat into a feast that finally felt like real food. This visible proof connected salt, meat, and crops into a sustainable survival system. Seos Shin had protein, fruit, mushrooms, vegetables, medicinal plants, fresh water, and unlimited seasoning. The outcome gave Seos Shin more control over nutrition and future trade. He no longer ate whatever prevented starvation, because he had started choosing meals for taste. The lesson showed why he could never afford to stop learning. Next came staple crops like rice or wheat, followed by chili, herbs, and every useful seasoning. While other survivors feared hunger, Seos Shin was already planning a complete kitchen. The new connection proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. His supposed junk seed sheet had produced the wood, while discernment revealed the salt and edible resources. The panda beside him turned survival into companionship, and the heavily armed treehouse turned dinner into safety. Lee Manhwa answered a call from inside one of her mines. Face covered in dust and iron pickaxe in hand, she returned the stored pork, keeping only the agreed 1/10 because even that was difficult to finish. Seos Shin offered more as payment, but Lee refused and preferred trading future iron instead. The contrast showed how technology could replace risks his body once carried. Her honesty strengthened his trust because she could easily have hidden part of the massive transfer. He listed excess meat publicly in smaller portions before spoilage reduced its value. The warning strengthened the private abundance growing around his treehouse. Buyers offered wood, stone, herbs, vegetables, and other materials they had risked hours collecting. The experience connected farming directly with defense, comfort, and progression. The Purple Watch converted food surplus into construction resources, without requiring Seos Shin to leave the bed. He spent part of the evening browsing the regional channel while Kiki dozed beside him. The discovery connected Seos Shin with allies who filled his missing capabilities. The population had fallen below 7,000 despite the official rest day. That result gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. Some survivors died from wounds received earlier, while others foolishly crossed the protection boundary. This change connected visible marks with hostility rather than raw strength. One message described a top-ranked chest hunter dying because severe injuries could not be treated. The advantage gave Seos Shin more questions than the discovery answered. The warning reinforced why Seos Shin valued blue hemostasis grass more than decorative ranking points. This visible proof made selective cooperation safer than answering every desperate stranger. Other organizations had begun selling ordinary medicine and coordinating supplies, proving cooperation was spreading rapidly. The moment made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. Seos Shin traded minor wood for mountain celery, wild dandelion, edible fungi, and additional vegetables. The discovery turned patient planning into a permanent advantage over scarcity. Blue resources remain absent publicly, moving only through private agreements between strong survivors. That result proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. Lee later asked how Beast existed near his shelter during the rest day. The new connection made the next objective clear without removing its danger. Seos Shin revealed only that his operating range was larger, protecting the gold potion's exact effect. She wanted spare tendons for her own heavy crossbow, but every piece had already been consumed. Seos Shin reminded her that the next event would return Beast within ordinary protected areas. The warning connected his caution with visible, repeatable results. With blue iron armor, Lee could hunt her own materials without depending entirely on luck. The moment gave him more options before enemies reached striking distance. The answer restored her excitement, and she promised to test the equipment as soon as possible. Night settled over the expanded territory while treehouse armor, weapons, crops, and stored food waited in silence. Seos Shin lay beside Kiki, believing the rest day had finally earned him several uninterrupted hours. A late call from Ji Choyang proved the region's strongest survivors had different plans. That evidence made the explorers useful, without making every member trustworthy. Ji Choyang asked why Seos Shin was sleeping, while every top survivor had gathered in the organization chat. The final invitation had succeeded, bringing all 9 silver chest holders into one private network. The contrast showed how one reward could unlock an entire crafting category. Seos Shin opened the projected screen and watched members welcome Ji Sobi, the quiet 8th rank survivor. Ji repeated the explorer's purpose, sharing information, trading rare resources, and strengthening members without forced charity. He emphasized that metal equipment remained available through fair compensation, rather than automatic distribution. The contrast made the next objective clear without removing its danger. 2 members immediately requested armor, then fell silent when Ji asked whether they possessed iron. This development made ammunition and positioning as important as raw strength. Lee Manhwa messaged Seos Shin privately before anyone else could solve the shortage. The new connection made every trade reveal something about the person offering it. She offered to supply him secretly and let him handle every finished product. That result pushed Seos Shin to think one step beyond the present moment. Selling raw or directly would expose the scale of her mines and weaken her negotiating position. Lee preferred the manufacturer to face consumers while she remained an invisible source. The pressure kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. That decision revealed far more strategic awareness than her playful personality suggested. The discovery turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. The cheerful beauty who blamed everything on luck had already built a mineral operation, capable of equipping regional elites. Seos Shin accepted the arrangement and announced that iron gear was available, if offers satisfied him. Private negotiations began immediately, transforming the new organization into a functioning market. The moment showed why alliances needed rules before resources changed hands. Ji Sobi sent the properties of a resource that made Seos Shin's expression harden. The experience turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. She possessed blue-grade hemostasis grass capable of rapidly healing severe injuries. The moment made his first place result valuable beyond public recognition. It could not regenerate destroyed organs or missing limbs, but almost every survivable wound fell within its effect. The grass offered something armor never could: recovery after defense failed. The moment showed why the correct tool mattered more than reckless courage. Seos Shin demanded 1 plant for each green iron set, pricing technology rather than raw material cost. Ji argued that 3 plants for 1 set was excessive and reduced the offer to 2. Seos Shin accepted because Lees are made production cheap, while life-saving medicine remained nearly impossible to replace. The trade delivered a complete green armor set to Ji, and to glowing blue herbs to Seos Shin. For the first time, serious injury no longer meant helpless bleeding while waiting to die. The contrast gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. Another member offered large blue-grade red berries in exchange for 2 armor sets. The new connection showed how cooperation could multiply advantages without becoming charity. Seos Shin already owned berry shrubs and understood 1 plant could produce dozens per harvest. The reaction gave Seos Shin trade goods without sacrificing essential supplies. He refused to value renewable fruit like a unique resource and demanded 50 berries. This change gave Seos Shin more control over nutrition and future trade. After prolonged bargaining, they settled at 40, enough to support night vision and Kiki's daily appetite. Every agreement proved the same principle: control the recipe, and ordinary materials become leverage over rare goods. Lee's hidden mines, Seos Shin's contracts, and the Purple Watch formed a supply system nobody else could copy. Ji Choyang controlled relationships and organization, while Seos Shin controlled mobile trade and specialized manufacturing. The observation made careful boundaries necessary even inside a useful alliance. The 9 strongest treasure hunters had not joined because of friendship. This change pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. They joined because cooperation gave each member access to advantages impossible alone. The observation proved Li Manhe's cheerful image had serious strategic ability. That alliance could protect the region later, but it also concentrated power in a very small circle. Seos Shin remained cautious because every member was strong enough to hide secrets behind ordinary behavior. Li Manhe was the clearest example, ranking 4th, surviving guardians, owning mines, and distributing blue iron casually. Her refusal to join Ji until Seos Shin personally invited her exposed where her trust actually rested. Ji admitted she had ended his call early and demanded first place send the invitation instead. That small detail shifted Li from useful acquaintance to someone deliberately choosing Seos Shin as her connection. He did not mistake it for romance, but loyalty in this world was valuable enough without labels. The organization also revealed how differently Ji and Seos Shin approached survival. The warning turned public attention into pressure Seos Shin had to manage. Ji built networks, guided strangers, and planned collective strategies several events ahead. The advantage made preserving options more valuable than committing too early. Seos Shin focused on discernment, self-sufficiency, equipment, and a small circle of proven allies. That consequence proved patience could create opportunities unavailable through force. Together, their strengths covered blind spots that either approach would leave exposed. The advantage showed why he could never afford to stop learning. During another private discussion, Ji returned to the underground monsters and their likely purpose. The outcome connected present events with threats waiting far beneath them. The enormous deep creatures looked like expanded versions of guardians, placed beneath survivor territories. The advantage proved trust had to grow through repeated actions rather than promises. Their size gap suggested separate populations rather than the same monsters traveling upward. That pattern made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Ji believed smaller versions had been created artificially to familiarize humans with future enemies. The lesson showed why preparation remains stronger than empty confidence. Seos Shin remembered the dead traveler from decades earlier and silently wondered how many batches had failed before theirs. He still withheld that clue because its meaning remained uncertain, and sharing unnecessary secrets created risk. Both men agreed the coming beast tide mattered more than theories they could not test. The decision showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Ji asked members to help others whenever doing so did not endanger themselves or weaken the group. When Seos Shin challenged his silence about event scoring, Ji answered without apology. That evidence connected atmosphere with the decision Seos Shin made afterward. The bottom 50 had to die regardless. So, warning everyone would only change which 50 disappeared. Preserving stronger survivors offered better collective odds against future threats. The decision connected the current action with the next survival problem. The reasoning sounded brutal, yet every event had already proven the system rewarded cold preparation. The advantage connected root growth with the system's repeated survival warnings. Seos Shin respected Ji more after hearing an answer designed for survival rather than approval. That result made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. The call ended, and the explorers settled into quiet efficiency instead of endless social chatter. That pattern showed why alliances needed rules before resources changed hands. Members posted needs, available resources, dangerous sightings, and crafting requests without exposing everything they owned. That evidence gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. Seos Shin adjusted his settings so only Ji, then Li could initiate calls directly. The warning made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. Thousands of public messages remained unanswered, including moral blackmail from strangers who believed first place owed them survival. Helping everyone was impossible, and exposing his inventory would only invite manipulation or future violence. The discovery made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Kiki slept through the strategy session, rolling away whenever the projected screen brightened her face. The decision turned an animal encounter into a relationship with lasting value. Her complete lack of interest made Seos Shin envy animals that did not understand rankings. This visible proof pushed Seos Shin to think one step beyond the present moment. He stored the blue hemostasis grass separately, where an emergency could not bury it. Beneath ordinary materials, the 40 red berries entered the new backpack, supporting night travel without consuming his own harvest. Iron armor orders converted Li's ore into medicine buffs, and political influence at almost no personal danger. The organization had become another form of progression, one measured through trust and trade instead of levels. Seos Shin finally dismissed the screen and slept before the system could announce another disaster. The decision connected visible marks with hostility rather than raw strength. Because he had rested earlier, morning arrived quickly, and his body woke before sunrise. The experience connected the environment directly with the threat developing nearby. Kiki stretched beside him, then followed downstairs while he prepared breakfast and checked equipment. That result made protecting his companions part of every future decision. The exquisite backpack received tools, water, medicine, fruit, spare bolts, crossbow, and blue armor. The lesson gave him more options before enemies reached striking distance. A quiver rested across his back, while the stone spear remained available for close combat. The contrast proved equipment quality through consequences rather than descriptions. Seos Shin inspected the heavy crossbow and confirmed all 5 iron bolts were loaded. The advantage converted Li Manhe's iron into immediate defensive power. The armored trunk showed no damage, and young replacement trees continued growing around the clearing. This development turned distance itself into another resource cost to manage. Li's stored ore, the salt mine, the resource basin, and mysterious stone pillars all waited inside expanded territory. Then the system's voice interrupted preparations with the next mandatory activity. The reaction made the protected radius central to every outward journey. Wild beasts would permanently return to the jungle from this day forward. That pattern proved survival depended on using information immediately. Survivors had received enough time and equipment to hunt instead of hiding helplessly. The reaction turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. The jungle hunting event would award points according to every beast killed or conquered. The outcome forced Seos Shin to preserve strength for the next exchange. Points could later purchase limited supplies, making combat directly convertible into progression. The advantage made the difference between safety and danger clearly measurable. The event lasted from 8 in the morning until 6 the following evening. The outcome gave the scene a calm surface hiding violent possibilities. Once again, the bottom 50 survivors in each region would permanently disappear. The pressure pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. The system warned nobody to travel beyond the treehouse protection radius. This change made the protected radius central to every outward journey. Its final instruction urged survivors to step over beast corpses and become kings of the jungle. When the event began, red marks poured into Seos Shin's 6-kilometer territory from the northwest basin. The number did not match the first beast riot, but danger now spread across every familiar path. Monkeys swung through the canopy, deer entered the clearing, and predators moved behind distant trees. The warning showed why stronger opponents demanded patience rather than pride. Seos Shin remained inside initially, allowing beasts to gather within range of fixed defenses. That pattern made patience part of his strength rather than hesitation. The heavy crossbow offered 5 devastating shots before manual reloading, so target selection mattered. This development gave the treehouse another layer of active protection. Kiki rested on the window ledge and watched the returning jungle without surprise. That result made every warning, gesture, and response worth understanding. A giant vulture swept past with wings nearly 5 meters across, startling her into a sudden jump. Seos Shin caught the panda before she slipped and looked toward the lake. For the threat he feared most, the colossal python remained absent, while only piranhas circled the increasingly dangerous center. The moment forced him to measure hostility separately from physical strength. As long as the python stayed away, the treehouse could handle almost every visible surface animal. Wolf howls soon rolled through the forest, drawing Seos Shin toward the first-floor weapon controls. That result made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. A silver-gray wolf entered the clearing, followed by another. Then more than 20 members of the same pack. The largest stood a full size above the rest, with brighter fur and unmistakable authority. The experience gave Seos Shin another rule for navigating the jungle. Seos Shin recognized the Wolf King immediately and thought of the blue mount contract stored nearby. Speed, endurance, intelligence, and a body under 300 kilograms made it an ideal target. The reaction made the difference between luck and preparation increasingly clear. Before he could act, the pack spread around a deer grazing beneath the treehouse. This change proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. The deer lifted its head to late, sensing danger only after wolves had closed every obvious escape path. Several pack members remained hidden behind trees, while others moved openly to force the prey toward the center. Their coordination revealed why wolves survived despite lacking the raw strength of bears or tigers. The observation showed why preparation remains stronger than empty confidence. Seos Shin watched from above, studying movement rather than firing immediately. The observation kept emotion from replacing the practical objective. He wanted the Wolf King alive, and disrupting the hunt too early could scatter the entire pack. The king released one commanding howl, sending silver-gray bodies forward from every direction. The pressure made the next objective clear without removing its danger. The deer exploded into motion, but to wolves already controlled the clearest route. The observation proved small observations could become decisive under pressure. Another snapped at its hind leg, turning speed into panic before the pack dragged it down. Dust, leaves, and blood mixed beneath the treehouse while the struggle ended within moments. This development proved battlefield control began before the first weapon moved. The wolves did not begin eating immediately because pack hierarchy controlled the carcass. This change turned the surrounding silence into another possible warning. They formed a loose ring and waited while the king approached first. The moment turned observation into preparation before danger fully developed. Its bright coat, broad shoulders, and calm authority looked even more impressive at close range. That consequence connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. Seos Shin compared the animal's size with the mount contract's 300-kilogram limit. The pressure connected one rescue life with a much stronger traveling team. The Wolf King fit comfortably, leaving no technical barrier if he could secure consent or helplessness. The blue contract promised to heal previous injuries, making a non-fatal wound acceptable. The advantage showed why stronger opponents demanded patience rather than pride. However, the heavy crossbow had split a tree, and a direct hit might remove more than the contract could restore. Seos Shin moved the joystick, aligning the iron bolt with the Wolf King's upper back. The lesson made the cost of one slow reaction painfully clear. He shifted slightly away from the spine, reducing the chance of instant death. The experience proved survival depended on using information immediately. The weapon remained steady, but his finger hesitated over the firing control. That pattern gave the treehouse another layer of active protection. A perfect shot could give him the mount, while a slightly wrong angle could destroy the opportunity forever. The king lowered its head and tore into the deer, beginning the limited window. The discovery pushed him to preserve options before committing fully. Once it finished eating, the pack would leave and become much harder to isolate. The decision proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. Seos Shin considered using his smaller crossbow instead of the mounted weapon. That result turned stored resources into force that could act on command. A poison bolt could weaken the wolf without catastrophic damage, but other pack members would attack whoever descended. Shooting from above might drive the entire group away. Before the contract came close enough to activate, the heavy crossbow offered immediate force, yet its power was exactly what made it risky. The reaction gave Seos Shin greater control over when battles actually began. Kiki suddenly tugged Seos Shin's clothes before he committed. The lesson made protecting his companions part of every future decision. Her paw pointed beyond the wolves toward a shadow moving between poplar trunks. The pressure made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. Several pack members noticed at the same time and released sharp warning howls. The reaction proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. The feeding Wolf King stopped, raised its blood-stained muzzle, and turned toward the approaching shape. The new connection made the next decision depend on preserving enough strength. A massive brown bear stepped into the clearing with the confidence of something that feared no competition. Its body looked thick enough to crush the earlier black bear beneath one paw. This development turned one visible enemy into several hidden calculations. For legs resembled pillars, supporting weight close to a full ton. This change connected his caution with visible, repeatable results. Brown fur shifted over heavy muscle as the animal walked directly toward the deer. The observation turned familiar ground into a measurable strategic advantage. The size was familiar from Earth's largest bears, but seeing that power only meters away changed every calculation. Seos Shin removed his hand from the trigger and reconsidered the safety of his treehouse. The new connection showed why production speed could matter as much as combat strength. Brown bears could climb, and the fixed crossbow did not cover every angle around the trunk. One bolt might kill ordinary beast, but this creature could possibly survive and retaliate. The outcome made future confrontations safer without making them harmless. The wolf pack spread apart as the bear approached, unwilling to challenge its overwhelming presence. The moment made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. Only the king remained close to the carcass, growling because surrendering food threatened its authority. This change connected salt, meat, and crops into a sustainable survival system. The bear ignored every warning and continued forward without accelerating. The new connection proved raw power could appear before any visible warning. It did not need a dramatic charge because nothing nearby appeared capable of stopping it. That result made the next attack depend on information gathered from the last. Seos Shin held Kiki away from the window and avoided unnecessary noise. The new connection made trust between creatures another form of survival power. The armored trunk offered defense against attacks. Yet a climbing bear beneath the blind side remained dangerous. His personal crossbow and spear could add damage, but fighting from desperation was not the same as winning. The animal reached the deer, lowered its head, and began eating beside the Wolf King. That evidence proved raw power could appear before any visible warning. No glance, snarl, or hesitation acknowledged the pack leader's claim. The lesson made the protection boundary feel like a genuine lifeline. That indifference angered the Wolf King, more than an open attack might have. The observation made every strike part of a larger calculation rather than panic. It circled closer, showing teeth and striking the ground with tense forepaws. That result forced Seos Shin to read the environment before reading the enemy. The bear dragged the carcass several steps away and continued feeding. The advantage made the protection boundary feel like a genuine lifeline. Seos Shin whispered that the wolf should retreat, because pride could not close a gap that enormous. Kiki watched intently, apparently treating the confrontation like another strange jungle performance. This visible proof made the strange team around Seos Shin feel increasingly real. The remaining wolves backed farther into the trees, preserving distance from the bear. This visible proof turned one visible enemy into several hidden calculations. Their behavior showed the pack valued survival over defending a leader's pride. This visible proof forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. The Wolf King lunged once, swiping at the bear's flank before retreating. The pressure proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. The bear barely reacted, turning only enough to keep the carcass beneath its body. This development proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. A second attack drew a lazy paw movement that missed because the wolf withdrew quickly. That consequence showed why the correct weapon changed the entire confrontation. The king's speed prevented immediate punishment, but every exchange required perfect timing. The reaction made every following choice more deliberate and controlled. The bear needed only one clean hit to end the contest. The decision forced him to separate a clean opportunity from reckless exposure. Seos Shin realized the unequal battle could solve his mount problem without risking a heavy bolt. If the king suffered severe wounds and lost pack support, the blue contract could restore it. The bear would likely keep the deer and ignore a defeated rival. The warning showed how quickly a manageable threat could become fatal. That outcome offered an isolated, weakened creature already within the contract's weight limit. The new connection made rarity meaningful through function rather than appearance. Seos Shin relaxed his grip on the joystick and began waiting instead of interfering. The observation made ammunition and positioning as important as raw strength. The decision felt cold, yet stepping in would expose both him and Kiki to the bear. He could save the wolf afterward without pretending he controlled the fight's outcome. The new connection made timing more important than the amount of force available. Below, the king continued circling, searching for the smallest opening around the bear's broad body. The moment made distance and positioning more important than aggression. The bear settled partially over the deer, using its own mass to protect the stolen meal. Its almost peaceful expression made the situation look absurdly casual. This development proved survival depended on using information immediately. Seos Shin remembered another bear stealing from wolves during the earlier beast riot. The new connection showed why Kiki's danger sense could not be ignored. That black bear had looked dangerous, but this brown giant belonged to a completely different level. The Wolf King darted in again and snapped near one foreleg. The experience proved the jungle punished hesitation and recklessness equally. The bear shifted weight, forcing the wolf away without abandoning the carcass. The reaction showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Pack members released low sounds from the forest but refused to advance. The outcome forced Seos Shin to keep an escape route ready. Their leader was fighting alone even before suffering any wound. The experience proved the jungle punished anyone confusing equipment with invincibility. Seos Shin studied the king's stamina and noticed each retreat becoming slightly slower. That consequence kept his next move tied to evidence rather than impulse. Repeated lunges spent energy, while the bear barely moved. The discovery forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. The wolf had speed, coordination, and courage, but no attack capable of breaking thick hide quickly. Its best chance was abandoning the deer, yet leadership instincts kept dragging it back. The discovery kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Kiki chirped softly whenever the wolf approached, reacting to tension rather than understanding strategy. That pattern connected one rescue life with a much stronger traveling team. Seos Shin kept the mount contract ready inside his backpack. The observation connected one rescue life with a much stronger traveling team. He also checked that the smaller crossbow carried ordinary bolts, because poison could complicate healing. That pattern made careful maintenance part of staying alive. If the bear suddenly targeted the wounded wolf after victory, one shot might create a distraction. The heavy weapon remained aimed near the carcass, offering a final emergency option. The experience made ammunition and positioning as important as raw strength. A gust moved through the canopy, carrying blood sent across the clearing. The experience forced Seos Shin to track distance, speed, and escape together. Other red marks avoided the area, driven away by the brown bear's presence. The pressure showed why direct combat should remain the final option. The map showed one enormous hostile dot dominating nearly every weaker signal nearby. The experience connected event scoring with choices beyond simple killing. That intimidation created the isolation Seos Shin needed for a contract attempt. The less improved timing could matter as much as the reward itself. The bear rolled slightly onto one side while holding the deer beneath its forelegs. The lesson made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. Its exposed belly looked vulnerable, yet Seos Shin knew reaching it remained almost impossible. This change proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. The Wolf King saw the same opening and lowered its body before another charge. The warning forced Seos Shin to keep Kiki outside the worst impact zone. Seos Shin recognized the commitment in its posture and stopped breathing for a moment. The warning connected previous lessons directly with the present problem. This attack carried more force than the earlier test and would leave less room for retreat. The king launched, claws extended, aiming toward the bear's exposed front. The new connection showed how quickly a small opening could decide the fight. The bear's eyes opened fully for the first time. The lesson forced Seos Shin to watch the map and Kiki together. It released the carcass, planted both forepaws, and began rising onto its hind legs. The observation turned experience into preparation rather than simple fear. The movement transformed a resting animal into a wall of fur and muscle. The moment kept his attention on consequences rather than appearances. Seos Shin tightened his grip on the heavy crossbow control without firing. This change proved equipment quality through consequences rather than descriptions. The decisive exchange had finally arrived, and one mistake from either beast would settle everything. This visible proof forced Seos Shin to watch the map and Kiki together. The brown bear's shadow swallowed the charging wolf before either strike had landed. This visible proof forced Seos Shin to track distance, speed, and escape together. The Wolf King twisted in midair, trying to slash while preserving enough momentum to escape. The warning made the protection boundary feel like a genuine lifeline. The bear swayed away from the claws with surprising speed for something so massive. The moment forced Seos Shin to preserve strength for the next exchange. One paw moved upward, but the wolf landed before the counterstrike reached full force. That result showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Dust burst from beneath its feet as it retreated several body lengths. The moment made the protected territory feel larger with every step. The failed exchange exposed how carefully the bear had been controlling its strength. This change forced Seos Shin to watch the map and Kiki together. It could respond faster than the wolf expected, yet still showed no urgency. The outcome proved the jungle punished hesitation and recklessness equally. The Wolf King resumed circling, now keeping slightly greater distance around the carcass. The reaction made the next decision depend on preserving enough strength. Blood from the deer covered the bear's muzzle, while its attention remained fixed on eating. The decision made every injury create both weakness and new opportunity. Seos Shin understood that the predator was not truly fighting yet. The advantage proved the jungle punished hesitation and recklessness equally. Every lazy movement had been a warning, and the king kept refusing to accept it. The reaction connected root growth with the system's repeated survival warnings. The pack's distant shape shifted farther backward among the trees. The observation turned the surrounding silence into another possible warning. No wolf attempted to flank the bear or support another attack. This visible proof forced Seos Shin to keep Kiki outside the worst impact zone. Their instinct had already decided the deer was lost. The decision forced him to build an escape route before pursuing the reward. Only the leader remained trapped by responsibility, hunger, pride, or all three. That consequence showed how quickly relief could disappear inside this world. Seos Shin considered whether a king abandoned by followers would accept a human contract more easily. The blue card could heal wounds, but it could not force genuine usefulness from a creature that hated him. He needed the wolf desperate enough to choose life without destroying its will. The observation made the cost of one slow reaction painfully clear. The bear provided exactly that pressure while remaining focused on the carcass. That pattern showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. Kiki touched the window frame and watched the wolf's movements with unusual seriousness. That pattern showed why companionship could matter as much as equipment. Her danger sense did not signal towards Seos Shin, confirming the treehouse remained safe for now. The heavy crossbow stayed loaded, and its iron bolt remained aimed below. The decision linked every successful hunt with safer equipment for the next. Seos Shin kept automatic mode disabled so the weapon would not attack every hostile creature. Without judgment, one careless setting could kill the future mount or provoke the brown bear. That evidence proved the contract preserved intelligence rather than obedience alone. The Wolf King made another short rush, striking from the side before bouncing away. That consequence forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. Its claws cut fur but failed to reach deeply through the bear's hide. This change forced him to value survival above dramatic victory. The The bear turned and swept one foreleg across the empty space after the retreat. The discovery proved even superior equipment could not erase every risk. Even the mist blow sent leaves and dust moving from displaced air. The advantage made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. That visual erased any fantasy that iron armor made Seos Shin safe against this opponent. The discovery linked every successful hunt with safer equipment for the next. A direct hit could leave metal intact while the body inside shattered. This development proved technique and positioning mattered more than blind aggression. The king attacked again from the opposite side, using speed to create uncertainty. The decision made every strike part of a larger calculation rather than panic. The bear shifted over the deer, denying access without chasing. This change made caution more valuable than confidence for the next move. Its strategy required almost no energy, while the wolf spent strength on every approach. The warning proved raw power could appear before any visible warning. Seos Shin watched breathing become faster along the king's flanks. That evidence showed how planning turned limited resources into reliable results. The bright fur around its mouth darkened with blood from the stolen meal and small scratches. No serious wound existed yet, but exhaustion was slowly changing the balance. That consequence showed why stronger opponents demanded patience rather than pride. The pack leader paused near one tree and stared at the bear without moving. The outcome made distance and positioning more important than aggression. For several seconds, the entire clearing held still except for the bear chewing. This development made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. Seos Shin almost hoped the wolf had finally accepted retreat. The contrast forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. Then the king lowered its body and began approaching again. The outcome kept his next decision grounded in caution instead of impulse. Kiki released a frustrated chirp, as though even she understood the stubbornness. This visible proof proved companionship could solve weaknesses raw strength never touched. The wolf used the carcass itself as partial cover during the next lunge. The experience forced Seos Shin to keep an escape route ready. It snapped toward the bear's face, forcing the giant to lift its head. The discovery forced him to measure hostility separately from physical strength. One claw finally raked across the bear's muzzle and drew a thin line of blood. The pressure showed why the correct weapon changed the entire confrontation. The injury was tiny, but it changed the bear's expression completely. The reaction made the protection boundary feel like a genuine lifeline. Calm indifference disappeared, replaced by focused irritation. The contrast connected previous lessons directly with the present problem. Seos Shin tightened every muscle because the contest had crossed from play into punishment. This visible proof showed how the map prevented the jungle from controlling direction. The bear stood higher and faced the king directly. This change showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. The wolf retreated several steps, yet still refused to leave the clearing. The decision proved raw power could appear before any visible warning. A low roar rolled from the bear and vibrated through the treehouse floor. The advantage made every movement depend on timing rather than courage. Nearby monkeys fled the canopy, while birds exploded into the sky. The lesson turned darkness into another condition his abilities had to overcome. Even distant wolves lowered their bodies and backed away. The new connection made the immediate consequence easier to understand and use. The hostile dot on Seos Shin's map seemed almost brighter after the sound. That consequence clarified another rule governing survival inside the jungle. The king answered with a howl, gathering courage it could not support with equal power. The experience connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. Seos Shin reached for the mount contract and moved it within immediate reach. The moment gave Seos Shin another reason to survive without becoming isolated. He also unlocked the route down the far side of the treehouse. The new connection pushed Seos Shin closer to controlling his own territory. Once the battle ended, delay could allow blood loss or another predator to claim the wolf. His plan required the bear to leave with the deer before he approached. The moment showed how one creature could change the entire battlefield. If the giant remained nearby, no contract reward justified descending. The advantage proved standardized prizes could still create unequal outcomes. The wolf charged again, aiming low around the bear's front leg. This change showed how one direct hit could reverse the balance instantly. The bear stepped aside and struck downward, missing by a narrow margin. The pressure forced Seos Shin to preserve strength for the next exchange. Its claws tore long channels through the soil where the king had been. That consequence proved technique and positioning mattered more than blind aggression. The wolf rolled, recovered, and snapped toward the bear's ankle. The lesson showed how quickly a manageable threat could become fatal. Thick fur and skin absorbed the bite before the predator kicked backward. This development forced Seos Shin to keep Kiki outside the worst impact zone. The impact glanced off, yet still threw the wolf several meters. The warning turned one visible enemy into several hidden calculations. It landed awkwardly, rose, and shook its head before returning to position. The outcome connected his caution with visible, repeatable results. Seos Shin saw the first real weakness in its movement. The contrast proved good decisions could matter more than stronger muscles. One hind leg carried less weight after the kick. That pattern connected exploration with the limits of his body and equipment. The pack remained silent, offering no support to the leader who had once commanded every hunt. Jungle hierarchy protected strength, not history. The advantage connected his caution with visible, repeatable results. If the king could no longer lead, another wolf would replace it without ceremony. The decision proved predators could exploit pride, hunger, and exhaustion. That abandonment might hurt more than the physical injuries waiting to come. That evidence connected the current action with the next survival problem. Seos Shin felt sympathy but did not confuse emotion with a reason to intervene early. The new connection showed why companionship changed the meaning of returning home. The bear was still close, and protecting Kiki remained the first responsibility. The pressure turned an animal encounter into a relationship with lasting value. He whispered that the wolf needed only to survive a little longer. The observation turned one visible enemy into several hidden calculations. The king could not hear him, yet its stubborn stare suggested surrender remained impossible. The observation connected one result with a larger pattern of progression. It circled toward the bear's injured muzzle, targeting the only visible proof of success. The moment showed why direct combat should remain the final option. The brown bear anticipated the angle and kept its stronger side forward. The advantage forced him to respect danger without surrendering the objective. Another exchange ended with the wolf withdrawing before a full paw strike. This change forced Seos Shin to track distance, speed, and escape together. Then another feint drew the bear's head but produced no attack. The experience showed why stronger opponents demanded patience rather than pride. The king was searching for one perfect chance to restore its claim. Its breathing came hard, and the injured hind leg trembled whenever it stopped. The bear lowered itself partially over the deer again, appearing to relax. Seos Shin did not believe the opening, and neither did the wolf at first. Seconds passed while the giant resumed eating with its face turned away. The king's ears shifted forward, and desperation began defeating caution. It moved closer in small steps, ready to spring the moment the bear looked vulnerable. Seos Shin saw the trap but could do nothing without changing the outcome. The mount contract remained clenched in one hand while the other rested on the crossbow control. Kiki pressed against his arm, watching the distance collapse below. The wolf reached striking range and gathered its remaining strength. It launched toward the bear's neck with claws extended and jaws open. At that exact instant, the brown bear rose onto both hind legs. Its body towered above the king, revealing the false opening had been deliberate. One enormous paw swept downward with speed that erased every previous lazy movement. The claws struck beneath the wolf's neck and across its shoulder. The king flew through the air, trailing blood before crashing hard onto the ground. Its body rolled twice and stopped near a poplar several meters from the carcass. For one terrible moment, the wolf did not move at all. Seos Shin released the crossbow control without firing, because the bear had already turned back toward the deer. The decisive confrontation was over, but the race to save the future mount had just begun. The wolf king's chest moved faintly, proving the bear's strike had not killed it outright. Blood spread through silver-gray fur beneath the neck, darkening the ground around one forelook. The brown bear watched only long enough to confirm the threat had stopped. It dragged the deer closer, settled over the carcass, and resumed eating. Every surviving wolf remained hidden among the trees beyond the clearing. None approached their fallen leader, challenged the bear, or offered protection. Seos Shin waited because descending while the giant still controlled the area would be reckless. The wounded king attempted to rise, but one foreleg folded and dropped its chest back down. Its head lifted toward the forest where the pack had disappeared. No answering howl came from the companions that had followed it moments earlier. Leadership ended the instant weakness became visible. Seos Shin understood the pack's choice, yet watching abandonment still felt cruel. The king tried again, dragging itself away from the carcass using 3 functioning limbs. Every movement opened the wounds and left another streak of blood across the soil. The bear did not pursue because food mattered more than finishing a defeated rival. That indifference offered the exact opportunity Seos Shin had predicted. He kept watching the map until the brown bear's enormous dot began moving away. The giant lifted the deer in its jaws and carried the remaining carcass toward deeper jungle. Branches shook around its body, then the heavy shape vanished behind the trees. Seos Shin waited several more seconds, confirming the red mark continued increasing its distance. Most of the wolf pack had already left the area completely. Only the wounded king remained beneath the poplar, its hostile mark growing faint. A weak dot meant time was running out, not safety. Seos Shin told Kiki to remain inside because the bear could still reverse direction. The panda nodded reluctantly and watched from the first floor window. He removed the noisy blue armor so metal would not announce his approach. The mount contract entered one hand while the other kept a weapon ready. Seos Shin descended from the treehouse along the side opposite the bear's departure. Fresh blood scent covered the clearing, powerful enough to attract other predators soon. He moved quickly, but avoided running straight toward the injured wolf. A desperate animal could still bite, especially after losing everything in one battle. The king noticed human footsteps and raised its head with the last strength remaining. Its lips pulled back, exposing fangs even while the body refused to stand. Seos Shin stopped outside immediate reach and studied the damage, for deep claw tracks crossed the lower neck and shoulder. The wounds were bleeding heavily, and one front leg could no longer support weight. Silver gray fur that looked magnificent earlier now clung together in dark patches. Even injured, the animal's eyes remained stubborn rather than submissive. Seos Shin admired that refusal to collapse completely. A mount needed endurance and spirit, not only speed. The bear had exposed the wolf's limits without proving it weak among ordinary jungle beasts. Healthy, this king could challenge boars, black bears, and most solitary predators. Its pack leadership also demonstrated intelligence, coordination, and the ability to command. Seos Shin lowered the contract where the wolf could see its blue light. He asked whether the king wanted to survive and offered a bond instead of death. The animal did not understand every word immediately, but the contract carried meaning beyond speech. Its snarl weakened, and the exposed fangs slowly disappeared behind closed jaws. A faint whimper escaped, softer than anything Seos Shin expected from the former leader. The sound contained pain, exhaustion, and an instinctive request for another chance. Seos Shin moved one step closer, watching for renewed aggression. The king remained still, eyes following the glowing card instead of his throat. Kiki chirped from the window above, apparently encouraging the decision. Seos Shin promised that cooperation would restore the wolf's body. He also promised food, shelter, and strength beyond what the abandoned pack could offer. The statements were ambitious, but every resource around the armored treehouse made them credible. Seos Shin possessed meat stores large enough to feed a mount without starving himself. The expanded territory gave the wolf room to run while remaining under root protection. The contract would eliminate current injuries and bind hostility before either companion risked betrayal. Most importantly, Seos Shin needed transportation capable of crossing 6 kilometers efficiently. The wolf needed immediate healing before blood loss ended the choice. Their interests aligned perfectly at the moment both paths converged. Seos Shin crouched carefully and extended the contract another fraction. The king's ears shifted, but it no longer tried to bite. Its hostile mark continued fading, warning that waiting for clearer consent could become fatal. Seos Shin activated the blue card and crushed it toward the wounded animal. The contract shattered into luminous fragments that spread around the wolf's entire body. Blue light covered the deepest claw wounds first. Bleeding stopped almost instantly, sealing torn vessels beneath the silver fur. Lost patches of fur began growing across every repaired section. The wolf's breathing changed from shallow gasps to deep, stable pulls. Its hostile red mark flickered on the map as the contract tested the connection. The king opened its eyes fully and focused on Seos Shin. For 1 second, old pride, pain, and uncertainty remained visible together. Then the red mark vanished completely from the map. A green dot appeared in the same location, brighter and steadier than before. The system confirmed that the intermediate mount contract had succeeded. Seos Shin had obtained the Jungle Grey Wolf King as his first official mount. Because the creature was conquered rather than killed, the hunting event awarded 50 points. The reward proved contracts counted as victories under the event's scoring rules. Every injury sustained before the contract received complete treatment as promised. The torn neck closed without scars, while silver gray fur returned thicker and cleaner. The weakened foreleg straightened until it carried full weight again. The animal rose slowly, testing each limb after moments spent near death. Its restored body stood nearly as tall as Seos Shin's chest. Broad shoulders and powerful legs made the mount look even more impressive from the ground. No trace remained of the broken creature abandoned by its pack. The wolf turned once toward the path taken by the brown bear. A low growl escaped, proving memory survived even after hostility toward Seos Shin disappeared. Seos Shin scratched beneath its jaw and promised revenge only after they both became stronger. The declaration was intentionally vague, because challenging that giant today would remain suicidal. The wolf accepted the touch, lowering its head rather than pulling away. Its expression softened until the former king looked unexpectedly similar to a massive dog. Seos Shin decided the silver coat and former status deserved the name Silver King. The animal responded by pressing its head against his body. Then it extended its tongue and licked Seos Shin's face without warning. He laughed, relieved that the contract created loyalty without erasing personality. Above them, Kiki released an uncertain chirp at the sudden display of affection. Seos Shin looked from panda to wolf and realized the strangest team in the jungle had finally formed. Before trusting the result completely, he gave Silver King one simple command. The dignified former pack leader watched him closely as Seos Shin ordered it to sit. Silver King folded its hind legs immediately and sat before Seos Shin, like a perfectly trained hunting dog. The obedience looked almost ridiculous on a creature that had commanded more than 20 wolves minutes earlier. More importantly, it proved the contract preserved intelligence while making communication possible. Seos Shin ordered the mount to stand, and Silver King rose without hesitation. A gentle hand signal made the wolf lower its body, showing it understood intent beyond one memorized word. The result meant Seos Shin could ride, direct, stop, and control the animal during dangerous expeditions. Silver King no longer exposed fangs at him, yet its posture remained proud rather than broken. The contract had not reduced a king into a mindless tool. It had replaced a doomed struggle with a partnership built at the exact moment both sides needed one. Seos Shin ran one hand through the restored silver fur and felt no blood, scar, or damaged skin. The blue contract had fulfilled every promise, healing injuries that would have killed the wolf within minutes. Its green map marker remained steady, clearly separating companion from threat. Kiki still produced no marker at all, confirming her connection remained stranger than any official bond. The panda finally climbed down from the treehouse. After the brown bear's dot disappeared deeper into the jungle, she approached Silver King carefully, sniffing the air while keeping Seos Shin between them. The wolf lowered its head and watched the tiny animal without aggression. Kiki raised both paws as though establishing authority over the newest member. Silver King stayed seated, allowing the panda to inspect its ears, fur, paws, and enormous tail. Seos Shin almost laughed at how quickly the former ruler accepted judgment. From something small enough to ride his back, no hostile movement appeared from either creature, removing the final immediate danger around the clearing. The brown bear had taken the deer and left, apparently satisfied after defeating the wolf king. Seos Shin still regretted missing a possible heavy crossbow shot at such a valuable target. Yet provoking a one-ton predator beside the treehouse could have transformed a perfect outcome into catastrophe. The bear's arrival had given him Silver King without forcing Seos Shin to gamble a lethal bolt. It had also demonstrated how far surface power still extended beyond his current armor and weapons. Blue iron could stop a boar tusk or snake bite, but one bear paw could destroy the body inside. Seos Shin collected the unused mount fragments mentally, confirming the contract had disappeared completely after success. There would be no second attempt unless another treasure or recipe produced a new card. Silver King was therefore not replaceable, making its survival part of Seos Shin's responsibility. The wolf leaned against him again, accepting the touch with surprising warmth. Its body carried enough mass to serve as transportation without exceeding the contract limit. Strong legs, endurance, tracking senses, and jungle experience solved several weaknesses at once. Travel across 6 kilometers would no longer consume entire hours on foot. Remote trade through the watch could clear excess weight, while Silver King handled speed and scouting. The three abilities combined naturally, though none had been designed as an obvious combat class. Discernment found value, Kiki detected danger, and Silver King carried them through the territory. That synergy explained why Seos Shin kept surviving opponents stronger than his raw body. He won by connecting information, preparation, tools, creatures, and resources before danger reached its final form. The hunting system had awarded 50 points for conquest, confirming mercy could be as valuable as killing. Seos Shin did not need to destroy every beast when contracts neutrality and cooperation offered better outcomes. Those encounters challenged the simple belief that every powerful creature existed only as an enemy. The map itself supported that distinction through red marks, green companions, and invisible neutral beings. Understanding intention might become more important than measuring strength alone. Silver King had once appeared as the brightest wolf in a hostile pack. Now the same animal stood beside Seos Shin without creating any warning. The change felt like visible proof that the jungle's rules could be understood and exploited. Seos Shin looked toward the armored treehouse rising above them. Its trunk protection had come from pine seeds dismissed as useless by survivors. The mounted heavy crossbow had come from birch timber grown overnight with fertilizer. The feast upstairs came from hunted meat, refined salt, lotus roots, mushrooms, and traded vegetables. The blue backpack carried medicine, fruit, tools, venom bolts, and resources that once overwhelmed his storage. The watch connected him to trade, crafting, rankings, jichuang, and Li Manhwa anywhere inside the protected radius. Li's hidden mines supplied iron, while Seos Shin's recipes converted that ore into power. The explorers supplied information and rare materials, without forcing him to trust thousands of strangers. Blue hemostasis grass protected against severe wounds after armor failed. Every advantage looked small when discovered alone. Together, They had transformed an empty treehouse and several strange rewards into a functioning survival system. Seos Shin was not the strongest creature in the jungle. The brown bear had proven that, and the underground giants made the comparison almost embarrassing. He was still vulnerable to poison, hallucination, drowning, overwhelming numbers, and one careless decision. The red gas had almost trapped him inside an endless shaft. The piranhas continued expanding across the lake, and the giant python could return without warning. Knowing those weaknesses prevented victory from becoming arrogance. Seos Shin's real advantage was recognizing what every danger taught him, and converting the lesson into preparation. The flower taught him to distress desire, so Kiki's perspective became essential. The cave taught him to create escape routes before descending. The underground world taught him never to abandon the treehouse. The leaderboard taught him that anonymity had ended and alliances now mattered. The boars taught him why ranged weapons were necessary. The salt mine proved ordinary resources could become strategic monopolies. The snake proved armor worked, but also revealed venom's value. The brown bear taught him that surviving a stronger enemy could create a better reward than fighting it. Silver King stood as the clearest result of that philosophy. The wolf had lost a pack, a meal, a battle, and almost its life. Instead of dying beneath a tree, it gained complete healing and a new bond. Seos Shin had lost the chance to remain unknown and the comfort of simple survival. In return, he gained responsibility for companions, allies, territory, and technology no one else could reproduce. Kiki climbed onto Silver King's back carefully and settled between the shoulders. The massive wolf remained calm, allowing the tiny panda to sit like a queen testing a new throne. That image captured how strange Seos Shin's life had become since entering the jungle. He had started with an empty shelter, beginner clothes, uncertain food, and no understanding of the rules. Now an armored treehouse guarded stored meat while crops grew outside, and automatic weapons watched the forest. A brilliant fourth-ranked woman trusted his crafting, enough to hide her greatest resource source behind him. The region's most respected strategist treated him as an equal partner. A mysterious panda had saved his life repeatedly without ever appearing on the system map. A former wolf king waited for commands after being restored from death's edge. They came from seeing value before everyone else understood it. The seeds were never junk, the panda was never baggage, and careful preparation was never cowardice. Every dismissed resource became one more layer between Seos Shin and the death waiting outside. Food became trade, timber became armor, iron became security, and knowledge became control. Even companionship became power. Because one warning sound could matter more than the strongest weapon. Seos Shin rested one hand on Silver King's head and looked back toward the treehouse. The jungle remained brutal, the system remained merciless, and the underground truth remained unsolved. Yet he no longer faced any of it as a starving man trapped inside an empty room. He had a home, a feast, an alliance, a guardian, a mount, and a plan built from rewards others misunderstood. Survival had stopped being a desperate reaction and become something he could shape deliberately. The world called those seeds worthless because it only saw what existed today. Seos Shin saw what they would become tomorrow. That difference turned mockery into abundance and danger into progress. In a jungle designed to starve the careless, Seos Shin survived by recognizing value before anyone else did.